Hey guys, Gingi here. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, cause well, I don't know, like if you don't subscribe, you don't have to. It would be nice, you know? Um, yeah. And hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Please subscribe.
Why is my loading screen so fucking slow? I scared.
Because there is a good side to it, right? I don't know.
I mean,
Getting Thundering with all your cooldowns up feels good.
mm,
Damn.
yeah, I mean, it's just such a punishing affix. I got like a lot of clips linked from on my stream from you discussing what was it? The plus solo queue and also the what's it called? Bellular video talking about positive affixes. That I mean, those are two. Yeah, those are two things that I would personally love if, like you said, for especially for it's not just for high key players, but the general public. If you have less punishing negative effects, but instead of if you don't fail them, you would get a positive effect from it instead, right? I think the game would be more enjoyable. Because I do agree, like right now you're just looking at them plus affixes every week, and like I guess this is the least 8s I can get. And then you play that week. You're not looking forward to. You're looking forward to the least bad week. You're not looking forward to like good weeks. I loved for example, cooldown reduction, haste, invis plus movement speed. Those kind of things were so good for the game. I love that affix.
Fun as hell.
And imagine the weekly affixes being like that. It would be amazing. I think. I think it will be a lot better for the game if we had positive affixes instead of negative ones. So the skill. Go ahead, Jack. No, you can cut in.
Oh, I was just gonna say, especially with some of them that eat up time, like Sanguine or Bolstering, where you have to kill more mob HP. Just being able to have like an extra damage buff that, if you do it correctly, could be an advantage. If not, just make up for the additional health you have to worry about. That'd be awesome.
And also, I feel like both of those things work together. So, like, if you're talking about Mythic plus solo queue and how IO would have to work in that scenario, I think the biggest issue with positive affixes, and you mentioned encrypted, which encrypted's fucking goated. I think that's like the best thing that's ever happened to Mythic Plus. Actually, it's made it so much of a better game mode. But if you had things with that varying power level, obviously some weeks with positive affixes would probably be even a bigger difference right now. Like some weeks would literally allow you to time 2 higher keys because they were just so fucking good, at least initially. But the thing is that kind of no longer matters with solo queue, because the whole point of solo queue is just timing the key in front of you, getting points or don't, right? Like obviously it would have to be remade. So like the positive affixes kind of work alongside that as well. But I know Tettles was like really against solo queue, but I disagreed with a lot of his takes.
Brown was against
Yeah,
solo queue, too.
like I saw Ted's video, and I don't think like I've ever disagreed with someone so much, like on every take.
Yeah, pretty much
Like to be honest,
every
goddamn
point.
Tettles, man.
I
like
think
oh,
solo queue
Now I
Mythic
gotta
Plus.
watch this.
The thing with most of his takes is he was trying to relate solo queue Mythic Plus to how Mythic Plus works currently, but obviously in a scenario where solo queue exists, the way you get IO, the way you group, and all those things are different. I was big time disagreed on the community perception part, because I feel like if anything, it would actually really help that.
100%. It's just like
what are your thoughts on solo queue?
yeah, I mean, I think it was my tweet he reacted to because I would love to have it in the game. I think it would be great. It would also be amazing stream content to just go in,
Yes.
pop a
Yes.
solo queue, dude. I would
great.
love that
Oh,
shit.
That'd be
But by the way,
Same.
you're saying it's good stream content, which I mean, dude, it would be insane stream content. But isn't good stream content just good content? Like, because literally what you're saying by that is,
Oh, yeah,
I
of
would
course.
want to play the game more on stream, like during the day. But isn't that the same thing as I just want to play the game more during the day?
And
so
you can
like
just do things
it's
like
indicative
you can
to
do so many,
everyone.
you can do so many challenges too. Like you can have like the thing on your stream where like you queue, like queue brewmaster first time to rank 1, or no, maybe not rank 1, but like
Here's
like
Ted's
class,
video, by the way.
whatever
You
you wanna
guys were
call it,
asking for it.
to some rating. That'd be fun as hell. I would actually look forward to that, like just like waking up sometimes and being ready to just like turn on stream and just slam solo queue.
I think it also is like about expectations. Because if you're queuing into like a pub group in Group Finder, or like you're queuing with some buddies and like things go wrong, everyone's like, "Oh, this is bad group," or "This person screwed it up." But there's a nice thing with like a solo queue where you can be like, like that's just solo queue, and you can
and
like
it just
brush
removes
it
a
off.
lot of friction too.
Yeah, you're just like, it's content, you know.
Yeah, I think Tettle's example was that it creates a lot of friction, and that's I think where I really disagreed, because I feel like you'd go into it expecting something different, and also there's a way to penalize people for doing that. So like if someone like immediately, there's a way to make it so if you wipe on the first pull, even though it's still timeable, and someone leaves your key, they fucking brick their rating, right? Like you can completely eliminate a lot of the stuff that exists now. The one thing I do think, Gingi, that you said is like you could like penalize people for toxicity and stuff. That's the one thing I didn't know exactly how they would even do that. Because like, where do you draw the line at like what toxicity is? Because then if it's like a reportable thing, then you could just like grief people you don't like too. I've always wondered how they would actually deal with that.
It was the main thing is like with the whole thing is that I think that something with like what people can report, maybe that is a little bit too much, like you can abuse it a bit, but I do think that people should be punished if they leave without using a surrender system that everyone agrees on when they want to, like, they say, okay, this key is depleted, are you guys okay with we forfeit, and then everyone loses the same rating. But if one person leaves or goes against the whole group, then I think that guy should be penalized more with some deserter or increased rating loss or something like that.
Yeah, definitely a vote to abandon or something would be good.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you guys if you guys were, if any of you guys were doing an interview with them, because I reached out recently because I realized like there's so much discourse in the community talking about Mythic Plus stuff, and I think most recently I've been the person that has interviewed either Ian or Morgan to like ask those questions. There hasn't been like some Mythic Plus focus, so I usually devote like half or more of my interview to it. And I'm not doing an interview this round. Uh, they reached out a while ago, and I didn't really want to do one after the race. And then I reached out again recently, and they were like, "We're all booked up. Like we got all the interviews coming, and
What the hell?
and they're doing it." That's why I asked you guys just to see if you guys were like one of those people, because I think there needs to be like a dedicated Mythic Plus interview with one of them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if that was happening, because I think there's a lot of really good questions. Like specifically, they've
would
never been
gladly
asked
take
about
an
solo
interview.
queue. They've never really gotten into the weeds about affixes outside of like just some basic stuff. I think there's actually a lot of really good questions to ask them.
Question is, will you get answers?
Yeah.
Most of the time you won't.
Yeah.
Not for the really spicy shit,
But at least you
Yeah.
get to, at least you get to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, of course.
They did ask about the interview they offered was an interview with us and Echo, I believe, in two separate interviews to literally talk about the race and like talk about like nerf. They literally said talk about the elephant in the room, the nerf timings, and the just like boss nerfs throughout the whole raid, and just basically just about the race like a couple months ago. And I'm pretty sure declining that was like the interview invitation.
Yeah, actually, I've been meaning to ask you about that. So the nerf timing, I don't understand the insides and outsides of the headquarters and everything like that. But from my understanding, you did get a message that the nerf was happening a couple hours prior to the nerf, right? Was there no possibility to jump on the PC in that timing and be ready to play during the nerf? Since so many of you are like playing together in the same area, or what was the reason for the late start in general? Since you started later.
No,
What
we
time was
started
it?
earlier. Our normal, by the time we got on and were playing was an hour earlier than our start time for that week. It wasn't a late start.
Okay.
And when we heard about it, it was 6 hours after we went to bed was when the post was, and
Okay.
we were playing 7 hours. So post went out, and then an hour later it came out. So the exact timing was basically as people were waking up and walking to the facility, you were reading this post that was made 30 minutes ago. And then when we sat down on our computers and turned my stream on, you guys killed it. And that timing, as far as starting late, we were starting an hour earlier than than
The
our
normal.
scheduled raid time. Because we did something different this raid. We started progression on day 1 when maintenance ended, which was 4 hours after reset, which was 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we kept that schedule throughout the whole raid. Just so we didn't like lose any time, basically. So which was why we were raiding so much later into your all's day, and it was like different this time. And then on that day, we just woke up an hour earlier.
Okay, I mean, we had a little bit of a different. Whenever it goes from one reset to the other, we like to end that last day early, depending of course how the tier is progressing, and then have the earliest start possible on the new reset.
Yeah,
Just
we
so-
usually we did that as well. So our second reset was also 4 hours delayed. We were gonna wake up earlier on the second reset, but the maintenance was 4 hours both weeks. So 11 a.m. Pacific time was when it came out on that second week's Tuesday.
But
We were gonna do the same thing. You guys did
yeah.
crazy shit on the first day though. You guys woke up at like 5 a.m. or whatever the fuck it was. You guys raided for like 20 hours or something doing splits, and then you delayed your sleep. That was something we didn't think about. You like slept extra long that night and then went to a normal schedule. Right?
Yeah, we went super hard the first day. That was like the longest raid hour, I think. I mean, raid day. It felt like the raid day we've ever had. Just because it was splits. But I mean, I don't feel tired doing like mythic progression. Like it feels a lot better. But like splits do something to your brain.
Yeah, it actually kind of makes sense. Like I feel like if you're doing splits in a day, it already ruins any progression you're gonna get. Because like I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever done splits for like 10 hours and then tried to do a hard mythic boss afterwards? Like an
Yes,
actual hard boss?
but that's a long time ago. So that's why we changed our like our mindset around that. So first of all, we have people on the bench doing splits for people and preparing the logouts and everything like that. You've probably seen. Utilizing our bench players to optimize time, and then we can do like a quick one if it's really necessary. But that's mainly for DPS squeezing. But the long-term splits for hours, you would be doing mythic progression on the day, and then you'd be doing a dinner break, and then you'd be doing splits for the rest of the night, and then you go to bed. You wouldn't continue mythic progress afterwards. That's just your brain is just gone after that.
Yeah. Yeah, but the
Handling our
nerf
echo
thing
strats,
is
bro,
pretty
they
rough.
know
I
this
talked about
shit.
this a
It's
bit afterwards,
obvious.
and
Viewers know
you
this shit.
asking about us the
They're
late
seeing
start
it on
thing,
stream.
makes sense because I never spoke about the nerf after the raid. I didn't tweet for a month. I didn't talk about it. I saw a bunch of people making up that we woke up late or didn't start early. We did start early. It didn't matter. But I think like maybe a post from them the previous night saying we're planning on nerfing this tomorrow because we want it dead before Christmas Eve would have been okay. But I don't really know what they can do. Because if they did it any differently, you all would have gotten fucked. Like the last 3 days of that boss, and this is true. Actually, this is something that people in chat are, don't pay as much attention to. But there's little small nerfs that matter throughout the entire raid. Like, they'll nerf like the 6th boss or something when one guild is asleep. This raid was different because we got in the raid so much earlier than you guys because you guys spent like an extra day on splits. But like in normal days or normal raids, we'll be on like Halandris and like the nerf timing matters, or you'll be on like Lords of Dread or Anduin or Painsmith or just whatever. And it's like one guild's going to bed and can't get the kill after the thing, and the other guild gets like a full day on it. But I don't know how they really could have nerfed it. I hate the way this race ended for sure. I'm sure most people do who were involved. But I don't know what other alternative they had, right? If they nerf it the previous night, we don't go to sleep and kill a boss. Like we were ahead of you guys the previous night, and you guys were ahead of us before you went to sleep. The last 3 days, we basically traded positions when the other person went to sleep, just like every other raid.
Yeah, it's always that dynamic usually, right? Like we wake up, we see you guys have been progressing, take a little bit tactics here and there. We progress further when by the time you guys woke up, and like we just go back and forth like that, outside analyst teams and things like that, big wigs, Weakauras, everything's just prepared. So when you wake up, you're just ready to go. Like all of these things. That's why, man. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I want global release. The whole fucking Europe scene wants this for like ages. I think that's the only way to really make it fair and square, because no matter what, the nerf timings has been cocking us, I think, in most
Yeah.
situations, just because it's American time zones that they usually nerf around. This was like a one-off, I think.
They usually spend all day thinking about a nerf. They end at 5 Pacific time, and then that's when they get off work, and that's when they put it in, and that's like in the middle of our raid, and that's 2 hours before you go to sleep.
Yeah.
And yeah, global release obviously solves a lot of things because we're at least playing at the same time. I actually think that's something that a lot of people outside the race don't really get, is like the shittiest part, is that it's not really the release thing. It's just because no matter what, we just talked about on Razagath how for the past 3 days on Razagath before it died, we woke up, took a little bit of what they were doing, progressed, they went to bed, we went ahead of them. They wake up, they see what we're doing, they take a little bit what we're doing, we go to sleep, they pass us. That is always going to happen because of that situation. You can gain so much efficiency by waking up and seeing what the other team is doing, and then taking time thinking about it and going farther. That doesn't exist with global release. Both teams are sleeping at the exact same time, and it's the feeling of going to bed knowing the boss could be dead when you wake up is fucking like the worst feeling of all time. Like the feeling of waking up. Like I don't know. I can think of a few raids with this feeling, but I remember talking to Roger Brown uh, after Sanctum, I think it was, where like you guys went to bed with the boss at like I think it was like 46% or something, and we were at 51, and then Roger said he woke up like 2 hours early on accident, and we were wiping at like 40 like 45.2% or something, and then he couldn't sleep for 2 hours, and you like feel helpless. Like
On
it just
Sylvanas,
yeah, it fucks your sleep so bad. Like having to know that. But dude, if you're going to sleep and they're going to sleep at the same time, not only would it just be better in general, but it would remove all of this like analyst up all night copying everyone's shit, making sure they're ready. Like it's just it adds to such a weird dynamic. But I don't think they'll ever do it. If they haven't done it at this point, I don't think they'll ever do it.
But I think Blizzard should take it further than just global release. And I think this is something that I think also the American region will love. And that is literally just being able to merge the European servers and American servers so we can play together.
Yes.
I think that would be the best
Yeah.
for the game. I would love that.
Oh, that would be so.
I
God,
think
that'd
if
be so
I think if
good.
the game came out in the last 5 years, I think it would have been made with EU and NA being able to play together. It's like a relic of a 20-year-old game, and they have fixed some other relics of a 20-year-old game, like the fact that cross faction wasn't a thing until like a year ago, when that was like clearly outdated as fuck. It would take something
People
tells
always
me
talk about
Blizzard.
ping.
It's
I
not
feel like-
bad. I've played on EU
Yeah,
from
I don't
Texas.
understand.
People
People
it's 100.
always bring up ping.
No one
It's
can talk about
130
ping.
ms. It's
Bro,
not that bad.
I'll give 2 examples. So number one, if you guys have ever queued into a Frostmourne group or you've queued into OCE on NA,
That's always worse.
People don't
that's
understand that.
it's going to be worse than EU, and it's still playable. We played in London
Yeah,
during
exactly.
Eternal Palace, and we had 90 ping. We had 90 ping from London to a Chicago server. If
Yep.
you're playing from NA to EU, it's like 130 at the absolute worst. It would not be a ping issue at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I did Texas
Yeah.
to Paris, and it was 130. Did that for 2 years. Not a problem.
Yo, but how would you guys feel about the raid if it was a little bit undertuned? Well, maybe not undertuned, but like tuned to the point where it wouldn't require nerfs.
Well,
Oof.
this has happened before. This used
Yeah,
to
I mean,
be
I'm
every
saying like
raid.
I'm saying how would that be?
Castlefrey, I think they were really good at doing this exact thing. I mean, it was like
Even Sanctum. Like I feel like Oldir through Sanctum, 90% of those raids required like extremely small nerfs.
yeah,
And
they,
at the very least, the end boss was tuned to be killable with week 1 gear. I think Gahoon could have died week 1. I think Castle. I
And
think
is that
if
bad that way?
yeah, I
Mountain
mean,
Deep dies week 1.
yeah, I mean, Gahoon's here. If let's say Liquid and Echo was at the level that they are now, back then that
Overboss
boss
is
would have
dead
been
on
gone.
Saturday.
Yeah, or been gone very fast.
Yeah, a lot of people. I actually love to see that. I'm pretty sure the levels of guilds in Oldir compared to now would be like, yeah, I really think Cahoon would probably be dead on Saturday or something like that. Just massively better. But what was the other thing I was saying about that? That's actually been the weird thing about the last 2 raids, and it's actually outside of like the needing to create a bunch of buckets. The reason why you see people that are like less interested in doing it is just because for us, and I'm sure for you guys in an extent, certainly felt this on Razageth. I don't think you guys quite got to see it on Dathia and Kurog because you started later. But like, it doesn't even feel like linear progression anymore after Sepulcher and this raid. And what I mean by that is like every single day you wake up, you can progress and learn from your mistakes, and there's a end goal in sight, and you can get to that goal without any nerfs or changes. In this raid, you get to Dathia, it gets massively nerfed. I mean, just like fucking, I don't even know how big of a nerf that was, but fucking enormous nerf. You get to Kurog, it has to be massively nerfed. You get to Broodkeeper, it's randomly perfectly tuned somehow. And then you get to Razageth, and after P1, the P1 intermission was nerfed in literally in half. You needed 20 people to go through and do one side and break the fire shields.
I don't know
Like-
how they fucked that up. Like honestly, like we had the theory that they like the dev teams that tested that boss, they had the whole raid go to one side and say, okay, it's fine, guys. And just splitting the
Dude, I have,
like
I have a theory for it too. And then Storm Surge is totally fucked. Doable, but like almost impossible. And then you would have had
Oh,
nowhere near
God.
the boss damage if you had to do it. And
that
then
was
and then the last phase got completely destroyed. It's like a 5 puller in a new guild right now in the last phase. So like the feeling of being able to progress linearly doesn't really exist anymore. It's only since Sepulcher, and I don't know what they changed or how they got it wrong. Because it feels like now you progress until you hit a brick wall, and then they nerf the fuck out of it, and then you progress until you hit a brick wall and you nerf the fuck out of it. It doesn't feel like you're actually progressing. It doesn't feel like real progression, but it only exists for us. Literally our two guilds and no one else. No one else experiences this. But it has made the raid certainly less enjoyable, and I don't know why it happened. Like when they do something like Storm Surge, like dude, I'm even getting into conspiracy theories because I would like to think that there's no way they're that bad at balancing that they got Storm Surge in the first intermission that wrong. Are they like intentionally overtuning it just to see how powerful we are and then tune it to exactly our power level or something like that? Like I don't understand how you can be that off.
That's
Well,
sort
I-
of how M plus
how do you
testing
not take
feels.
the numbers from the previous bosses and
I have no
balance
idea.
it based off
Yeah.
of that? That's the thing that's wild to me.
Here's what I think they did this raid. Classes in their full, and this is actually similar to why most tier lists before the expansion were wrong, because they were looking at raid classes in their pure single target builds, and they were looking at Mythic Plus classes in their pure AoE builds, and they weren't accounting for which classes could actually do both at the same time. So I think they were tuning Razageth health for full single target talent builds, and they were tuning those ad phases for everyone being full AoE. And they were tuning them based on two different subsets of data. And they just thought that you could do both at the same time, or they just goofed or something. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because like if you have to run a build to kill an end boss, you need a little bit of both. And it just made the ad phase impossible. But the thing is this never happened before Sepulcher. Like Sepulcher, they did the same thing. They basically tuned every boss from Halandris on to exactly our guild's power level, where previously they never did that, and they tuned just the last boss to be killable week 1, but it was extremely fucking difficult, and that changed. Maybe it was tier bonuses that made it change, right? We got tier bonuses in Sepulcher for the first time in a while, and they're like struggling tuning that because of how much tier we have versus everyone else. I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, it is super frustrating when you get to a boss and you're just sitting there like, okay, you cannot progress that much further. You can just get more consistency in the earlier phases, and you just need to wait for a nerf. And if you're ahead, that lead is gone, and it's so frustrating.
Wait, what did I need to defend myself for? What did I do?
Wait,
Special
you're
You know.
awful take.
The
apparently.
what is the thing about
Solo queue take.
Solo
Yeah.
oh,
We're way
Tiddles is
past
here.
that now, though. You're too late.
Fine.
Oh fuck! I was gonna say something about a boss, but Tettle's fucking. My brain is.
How you doing, Tettles?
over.
My bad.
I mean, the worst example of the just wall
What's up?
was Queen of Shara, man. We were stuck in phase 2 for a literal week while they figured out how to fix that fight.
Okay,
God,
dude.
that was a nightmare.
Queen Ashara is a great example, because I know Gingi knows this feeling too. You were rating that too, right? Yeah, you were.
Yeah, I was. That was the first
feel
year. I
like-
think you went out, right? On Sekul, I believe. You were
Yeah,
leading
that was
out.
the first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was doing. We realized we were gonna one tank the cool, and then we sat Ben, and then I tanked it to like I think tanked it and raid led until like 10%, and then we were just like, why can't we just do both? We did it fucking crazy too. I literally took his headset and I raid led from behind his monitor. It was fucking janky, but yeah, it was the Shara that okay, the raid before Ashara, Eternal Palace, the raid after Ashara and N'Zoth. There weren't really any glaring huge issues that needed nerfs. And Ashara stuck out so much because there was just a phase and tuning that was basically like impossible. It was doable, but like basically impossible. And then they nerfed it and the boss instantly died. That is how multiple nerfs feel now. And the thing that's significant about that is nothing happened like a year before or a year after Ashara that was anywhere close to that level of mismanagement and tuning. And then I could name 4 things in this raid that were that bad, that were that off. And I don't know why they got worse at tuning things. Like it must be tier. I remember they said in some interview, Morgan Day talked about how it's much easier for them to tune now because they have this new tool that like grabs real-time data and like all this stuff. He said that before Sepulcher, and it's been 2 raids in a row with like the worst tuning ever. So I wonder if that just like bricked them somehow.
What about new people on the job though?
That's what I was thinking. Wasn't Ashara one of the first bosses that was mostly designed by the people that we have now, and not like the old designers?
I just know that after like all the lawsuits and stuff, they just hired a whole bunch of new people into the mix.
Gingi, would you rather have a heroic week or like it was last raid?
I didn't like the way we had it now. I mean, the thing is, you're going into splits anyway, always first. So there's no real reason to like. No one's gonna kill any mythic boss before they're doing heroic. Like hardcore guilds is not gonna do that.
Yeah, but
Casual
unlock
guilds
Mythic Plus though. I think that's the big thing. Because
unlock M plus.
or like
We had M
for
plus
everyone
still,
else,
right?
it's
It was
much
just
better
capped
always.
the
Yeah, but it
item
was
level.
capped.
Yeah.
that
M
always
plus
felt
sucks.
awful.
Everyone hates that.
Yeah. Like
Capping
I
M plus
think if you
sucks,
ask
but
most people, they would say this feels
so I
much
think you
better.
can do both though. I see no reason why you couldn't have Mythic Plus ready to go from week 1 of the season and also do a heroic week. It would be just fine.
I agree. I think they should do that.
Yeah, I think the only reason it was ever like that was to prevent like the World First Guilds from doing like splits to, do a bunch of Mythic Plus and then go into heroic and then you can trade gear or something. But I'll give you a little heads up. If they did a heroic week, there would be not much of that week where you were not inside of a raid doing splits. So there would not be uh, any time to do that for sure. So it would just basically Mythic Plus would just be used in heroic week to gear your main after it was selected by whatever run you got the best gear in or whatever. So like it wouldn't actually affect the race at all. And I think that was probably their primary concern in making it like that.
I
So
mean,
I
but
think
you
they
would
could do
go into
both.
Mythic Raid with higher item level, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like we already are.
Significantly higher.
In fact, we'd be going into mythic grade with higher eye level, but maybe isn't that a good thing? Because you know whose eye level would go up the most? Everyone else's. Like
Yeah.
the difference between Echo and Liquid's eye level every single raid is eye levels ahead of anyone else going into these raids.
Yeah.
And
That's because of buckets, like and how many
Yeah.
characters we have and how good average item level we have. Because we can choose our means based on the gear that drops in each individual raid, right? And people that can just pump in plus will be that much closer to us because they can just blast in the first week.
yeah, I would agree with you that I think I dislike the way this time. Like, the only thing that seemed hype about this time is like everything was coming out at the same time, and
Against
it would be like
sucks.
more cool to watch. But like all that viewership went away as soon as everyone did splits for a couple days, and I don't think like viewership or intrigue was even bad during Heroic Week. Like a lot of people digest that content better by doing it that way, and then at least there'd be way less splits during Mythic if they did that. But it would mean a crazy Heroic Week. Like the amount of stuff going on that week would be insane. You'd be playing all day, every day. It'd be wild. But at least it would make Mythic more palatable, I think, and hopefully it would help them with tuning. I mean, this was probably the worst tuned raid ever. And is that a coincidence that it's also the first raid where they haven't had a heroic week to kind of get a gauge on where classes and bosses are ahead of time? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that something says that that would probably be true.
Honestly, it just feels like the M plus problem where we're overtuning things so that they feel players are challenged enough rather than having to come out with slightly undertuned stuff. whether it's M plus or raid.
How much of them not doing a heroic week this time was due to them actually wanting to experiment with it, or just them being like, okay, we have to release
Christmas
the
thing?
expansion here, and there's no way we can fit in a heroic week and the mythic week before Christmas, so fuck it, everything at once.
Probably that.
I think it was that, but they were asked about this specifically. And basically what they came up with was, yeah, this time it helps because of Christmas, but, and then there was a whole paragraph on how they think it would be good for the game, and that they were asked basically the exact question was, hey, is this just a season 1 thing, or are you guys going to do this in the future? And they pretty much, they didn't say definitely they were going to do it in the future. They were just like, yeah, we think this is just better. And I wonder how they feel about that after this raid. But I guess we won't know until next season. The word on the street is that there's a heroic week, just to be clear. Like that's what I've heard.
God bless.
But I don't know how accurate that is, and I think that would be better for the game.
I think it's better for
No,
the
I agree.
raiders.
Still have 1 million characters though. That won't go away until tier is gone. I guess in the scenario where there's a heroic week, you would need a lot of characters still, but you would need less buckets. That's all.
Yeah.
'Cause
But at least the group loot is you're relying on less helpers in the heroic raid. And that was
Dude,
also
thank God.
also one interesting thing that I was a little bit surprised. You guys started with normal this time. What
Mhm.
was the reasoning for that?
Well, well, first of all, that was Bubba's main thing. He's like the split guy. Basically, we chose to spend like what we thought would have been like half a day or a whole day less on splits. We were focusing more on tier, and we knew we could get everyone tier by doing normals out of the way, picking their characters before heroic, and then giving their characters, 1 or 2 of their characters, a heroic run. So basically just lowered the, and we were more geared going into heroic. So it was a like time efficiency versus like overall gear thing. Like we figured that, I'd say probably get a half of an eye level doing heroic than normal. I think that actually ended up being what it was. I think once our guilds were on the same boss, you guys had about a half eye level ahead of us, and we felt like that wouldn't have been the difference in that raid. Also, we thought the raid, we were pretty confident we were going to kill the raid in the first week this time. Looking at PTR, like
Okay.
we thought this was a 1 week raid for sure. So we were like, make sure we don't want to spend 3 out of the 4 days and not get enough progression time to kill the last boss. And I don't think it ended up really mattering. Where it would have mattered was if they didn't nerf the boss and they allowed us, the like probably 2 days it would have taken to find the damage to kill it from there. I think the eye level would have skewed in your all's favor for sure if that was like the end of the raid. But I think, once they nerfed it and made it instantly killable, then I don't think the eye level mattered at all.
And then there's the one thing as well. Like I think the reason why Blizzard was so far off. I mean, I don't think the tier pieces were that massive this time. I mean, they also wanted to keep them simplified, so they didn't have too many different things in combination with each other. Especially with the new talent systems, I think they just bit off a little bit more than they could chew in terms of balancing. I still think that if they didn't nerf Razageth, I think it was killable that week. With
No, that's what
the
I just said. I think it would have taken. I think it would have taken about. I think Sunday, maybe late Saturday kill. For that boss, it was definitely doable. It just would have required healing through basically the room, stacking up damage infinitely. Because there weren't a lot of mechanics that were killing you then. It was just the raid damage at the end. You could have definitely lasted. It would have felt like Jaina.
I think Jaina was the Jaina. Yeah, you're right. I mean Jaina back then. I don't remember what strat you guys had, but we went for the full-on ignore all mechanics, kill boss strat. Same thing we did on a shower as well, where you guys went for playing the fight as intended, I guess.
Well, we did that for a while on Jaina, but then we stopped. We did like a NASA strat where we were trying to break everyone out of an icicle one time in the last phase, which was that's actually one decision I look back on. And if that wasn't like the second time we were ever going for world first, we would have never fucking done that again. Like that is like prime example of that in Ashara, of always going for the easier solution of why learn the fight when you can just beat it, or why learn this thing if you can just beat it. So we did the burn strat. We wiped like 12%. We did some bad math, and we were like, this boss isn't burnable this week, which was turbo wrong. And then we did the NASA strat for like a day and a half. We realized we could burn it, and then we went and burned it, and we just didn't have enough time to like get the damage done before the reset. But we ended up burning it too.
Yeah. I think
We did some weird shit. We figured out a way to get luck during the last phase.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a different mentality on some fights. Like we saw it on Dreadlords too, and also what was the other fight? Yeah, on the second Rygalon as well, where we dropped the healer. We have a little bit of a different mindset a lot of times in some of these DPS check fights.
Rygalon definitely made sense. Well, I think Rygalon was a little different because we went to bed doing math and we're like, okay, this boss is dead 5 healable. Like, we can definitely kill the boss 5 healing. And then we woke up and saw you guys were 4 healing it. It took you about like 5 hours or so of 4 healing to like figure it out and get to the point where you could make it to the enrage. And it was clear that if you made it to the enrage with 4 healers, it was dead.
Yeah.
And then we were like, okay, what do you think is going to be the case? Do we spend 5 hours learning 4 healing roughly or more? Or do we think we can kill it in 5 hours, 5 healing? And that was, we just decided to keep 5 healing, which was good. We should have killed it. Did you guys ever realize that? You were on Jailer. I don't know if you guys actually ended up realizing this, because the enrage timer was not relevant in a 4 heal strat. Like, if you could 4 heal it, you got to the end of the fight and it just died. Like, it was going to be dead.
Yeah.
For us, it was like an enrage check. It was like going to be super fucking tight. The boss had a variable enrage timer. Like, it we never really figured out exactly what caused it, and they fixed it right after we killed it. But the boss was supposed to enrage, I think it was like 7:11. I don't remember the exact time. That's the one that is in my head. And it would randomly enrage from 7:07 to 7:11 would be when the massive bang went off. And we didn't know what was causing it. So on our second pull, we wiped it 0.7% or something, but the boss enraged at 7:07. So we had 4 extra seconds to kill it, or should have, but it had a variable enrage. And then we ended up killing it like 4 hours later or something like that. After we had that wipe, that was fucking tragic.
But that raid tier was like really close back and forth. I mean, you had better Halondres, you killed Andom before us, then we kind of overtook a little bit.
Yeah, you guys played better on Rygalon and Lords of Dread.
But what happened on Jailer? Because that was not the same liquid on that boss from we've seen. What was the?
I think we just had like a Menti B. We were fine on it all the way up until like we were, the first time we got to like sub 20%, we were trading off. It was like one guild hit 20, the other guild hit 18, the other guild hit 16, the other guild hit 14, and then I think we got to 12% with our strat before ever changing it. Yeah. And then we made some comp changes, which were like the worst thing ever. Like, we regressed so hard. We basically, I think for an entire progression day, after even being in the lead at 12%, we had an entire progression day where we did not even get like sub 15. It was just like a full-on boom. And as far as why, I think one thing you guys did that was actually pretty smart was you guys started sleeping more near the end. I think I heard like Zalia was like pretty like stern and like, yo, we need more sleep. You guys took that day off, or most of a day off, on Monday. We never did that, and we got to the event like a week before you guys, and I don't know if it's the same for you all or if you ever felt this at all, but like there was that feeling of like we have these 20-something people, like 20 to 25-year-olds that are living out of a hotel for, at that point, 30 days. We had to move hotels like in the middle of the last week. People were just kind of done with being where they were. Also, the conditions were like, I didn't really talk about this a lot at the time because like I didn't really want to flame Liquid too hard about it, because like it was the last event in the entire country space that we could get. And like the last event we had was sick. Like, obviously, like the Team Liquid place was awesome, but like we had to replace the catering multiple times. People were getting sick. We had like an hour or two of packet loss every day. All the internet IPs were public. Multiple times the employee there was downloading a game like Elden Ring, and it literally gave everyone 500 MS.
Did he get fired, dude? Oh my god.
No, he did this twice too. He did this twice.
What the
He-
fuck?
the food was literally garbage. Not only did it have to be replaced
God.
twice, but like it was just like always cold. People weren't eating the food that they were catering. We were walking and getting our own food, which was obviously like super carb heavy and like, you know, people weren't eating right. Uh there was like maintenance at one of the hotels, so like there was like a loud like soccer, people were like screaming all night in the hotel. And then I think more than anything, it was just being there for 30 days. Just seemed like people were so over what we were doing. But also just I think we made a swap at the end of the thing and played really bad, and then we weren't going to recover from that.
I always see like a lot of some of the liquid videos, and you have like a personal chef and everything, and the catering looks so good, bro. We got mushrooms and tomato every single day. I don't know. I was so tired of our catering after
Dude,
the
the
end.
catering this time was banger. The
So
really
good.
fucking good.
Chef
It was
Heidi,
insane. Yeah,
She knows what she's doing.
time pretty much everything was insane. We had a little bit of a sickness outbreak. That was one thing that was not great this time. We had multiple people have to be separated due to illness, and like we had to like move people around. We had people raiding from like these random rooms. So that was like the only thing, but everything else this time was just like perfect. That event space was awesome. It was like just as good as Complexities.
Yeah, Jack had to. He gave up his room so that raiders could
Yeah.
raid from the apartment.
True.
Speaking of that, the one super complicated thing this tier was splits and like how to trade gear. So both our guilds figured this out where like you do the runs, you don't trade anything, you have a spreadsheet handle all the loot, and then you have it handed out. And the guy who was micromanaging all of this was Bubba. This was his job for the tier. This shit was going to be him. He was going to figure it out, make it the most efficient. And then he gets gravely ill. It wasn't COVID. We don't know. We think it was like RSV or something. The day of splits, he's like barely able to be awake and do anything. And he's playing out of this room. Ben also got sick with the same thing on the same day and was just like playing out of a hotel room. And I felt so bad because like he put months of work into it and he was just like a shell of a human.
Oh, unfortunate. Scribe was handling most of that stuff together with some of the outside guys. But yeah, very convenient to have someone else. Scribe also said that bit of someone that dedicated to do this stuff just does this. It's hard to find the right person you trust.
I'm too stupid to do splits. That shit's way too complicated.
Yeah.
You have a general idea for it, but it's the amount of like math and shit that went into that this time is crazy.
What's the dynamic like in the guild? Like, what role do you take outside of like raid leading? How much input do you have in strategies, group composition, things like that?
That's my entire dynamic. I would say even raid leading, I feel like as far as calling things every pull is like pretty minimal. Like I actually think that could be handled by other people. I would say my dynamic in the guild is entirely strat related. All the strat stuff is me, or most of it, or a team of people. Obviously, it's a collaboration between a lot of people, but like that is my final decision making. Is like comp is my big thing, strat, and I would say problem solving. I think that's the thing that's actually the most important. Is like not calling things is could be done by a lot of people. It's being able to see when things are wrong and finding a quick and good solution to it. That would be my role.
Okay.
A lot of the other stuff is kind of given to other people though. Like I think most of recruiting or at least like keeping an eye on talent is done by other officers, you know, the splits and farm done by other officers. Most of it is just creative problem solving during the raid.
And when group composition, that's like sounds like an easier job than it actually is. Like, how do you keep yourself up to date with all of the classes, their strengths, weaknesses, especially with all of these new implementations into the game? Like, you need to really be on it to really make good decision making when it comes to that.
Well, I feel like you have to still play the game and kind of understand it at your own level. Like, I don't think any one person, like, I would not expect myself to play every single class in the game because I know, especially like with range DPS, and like, I'm not as good as ranged as melee. And then also, I don't heal and I haven't tanked in years. So I've always understood tanking because I've done it, but like, I don't heal. So, like, healing, I pretty much just, I don't know if I'm going to be doing this in the future, but like, I delegate that to people, to our healers and our healing core to kind of decide healing composition. And then I just need to know basically what buffs are going to come out of healing or if we need them to run any buffs, but I don't, usually that's never a thing. my comp is almost entirely fixated on like DPS and tank compositions, and I feel like it's probably the same as your all's guild, where there's no one like master source of all information. You just have to collaborate with people, and you have to keep up to date on the strengths of every class, and that's just talking, being around a lot and talking with people, especially during beta. Like you guys will notice through the rest of the expansion, for the other people in the call, the comps for things are going to be much more obvious for the rest of the expansion, just like they were in Shadowlands. It didn't really change after like the first season or two, outside of some major nerfs, because like beta and going into the first raid is like where the most things are new, and you can have the most advantage by knowing that. Like clearly this raid, healing was one of them, right? Like our healers were off of Evoker, and clearly that was wrong. And like going forward in the expansion, you're not going to catch us or really anyone else underestimating Evoker, or a class that isn't being played at the moment.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting you say that, because Evoker was a new class, and from what I've heard from many of the healers in our guild is that initially it's a very awkward healer, and it takes some time to get used to and actually get the full use out of its strengths. And we had a lot of our healers; they were like hard pumping Evoker on beta. You feel like that's something that one of like your healers were missing, or what was the reason you think why?
I do think, yeah, that was a mistake. So I noticed that. So I noticed that your healers basically were just playing a ton of Evoker. The way we looked at testing and you guys looked at testing was a little different. I noticed you guys were basically forcing Evokers into comps just to get more information on them, which I think in hindsight was the better decision. What we did was, let's take the healers that are currently the strongest and we're the best at right now, so we see farther in testing to get farther. And I think we did. We killed, I think we killed every boss that was tested on Mythic. And that was, we just felt like it was better to get farther in it. But also, the thing that made Evoker so good was actually changed after testing was over. And I think your guild saw that by playing it in testing and then being like, okay, well, if you can just add this to this, then like, okay, that this raid build is insane. I know like the change they made to Evoker that made them so good in raid was largely done after testing was over. So like our healers weren't playing the fuck out of it on beta, and that definitely, I mean, I don't know exactly what it is. We had a few healers. I mean, it's actually pretty divisive. We like maybe and another one of our healers were like very, very high in Evoker and wanted to play Evoker all the time. And the overall decision was that it's new, and then also Evoker like wouldn't have been quite good enough. And then we saw pretty quickly that that is not true. That's also why I started healing in farm, or healing a little bit, because I think I need to be, in general, that taught me that I needed to be more involved with like healer decision making. I did think that was pretty uncanny though, because this is literally the exact opposite of what happened last expansion, but just swapped guilds. Like I feel like last expansion we were like super high on Venthyr Pally, and we were like, this is the fucking spec. This shit is so broken. You run two of these, they do so much damage. And then I think that definitely gave us an edge over you guys in Nathria, like 100%. And then this raid, I feel like your all's preparation of Evoker.
Yeah, Nathria was cursed, bro. Also, our Boomkins went Curian. I mean, there was double shambles there.
But your Boomkins went Curian for last boss?
No, they went Curian for like back then. We were kind of like you were hard locked into a covenant, and I remember those. Yeah. Oh, you went Curian as well. Oh yeah, true. Both our Boomkins inted super hard. You're right.
Okay. I agree that it was like a somewhat int, but I think it actually made sense for the bosses we were doing. So Night Fae was better for sure on like
Sludgefist, fucking broken.
Denathrius and Sludgefist. But Kyrian was actually really good on Sludgefist, because there was a really good 1 minute class at the time. I forget who it was. It was either Demo wasn't good yet, and Affliction was only good on 1 and 4. It was Fire Mage. So Fire Mage had combust and giga damage for every pillar. So we thought, but we paired up Kyrian Moonkin with combust Fire Mage for pillars, and it was actually pretty valuable. Like the druids were doing overall less damage, but it was within like very small amounts of DPS difference. And then we also wanted Kyrian for Stone Legion generals, because Night Fae was just pretty dog shit on Stone Legion generals. So the plan was to be Kyrian for Sludgefist and Stone Legion, and then go Night Fae for Denathrius, which I think was okay. I don't know if your druid stayed Kyrian the whole time, but I know that you could have like prepped a Night Fae swap for the second week, which is what we did on Donnie.
Yeah. You also had a different. Was it the Prot Warrior you played? I think that was also. The tank
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, we knew that arms was going to be fundamentally the very like Arms Warrior wasn't amazing on Denathrius, but their design was amazing for it. They had Venthyr, what was it called? Condemn was perfect. You had Condemn to target cleave with execute in all of P2, right? And then you had Condemn in P3, which was like perfect Arms Warriors percentage. So we were like, look, if Arms Warrior's ever going to be good on this fight, if Arms Warriors tuned well at all, they will be like the best class for this. But right now, Arms Warriors tuning is dog shit. They were like really low tuned that raid in general. Each one of our guilds, I think, ran exactly one. And then we were like, okay, well, what's better this raid? I think it was, what were the tanks back then? Was it Vengeance Demon Hunter and fuck, what the fuck else was the other? I don't even remember the other tank, but we basically just thought that outside of Vengeance Demon Hunter, which we had one of, we just thought that the rally was better than the other tank option, and it allowed us to sit warrior on the last boss if their tuning was bad, which was pretty close. I think we would have. You guys probably never sit Reves because he's so good. Like that guy's just goated, but like I think warrior was like very sittable on that fight, and that would have allowed us to still keep the buff basically.
Actually, funny you say that because Revis was topping the boss damage in last phase when we looked at logs after the kill we had.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Kevin, if you include damage done to Remordium P2 was decent, but I forget exactly what boss we were bringing. But like, because P2 and P3 damage, did you guys ever cap your damage in P2? Like where you could not get any more boss damage out of P2, it just phased when it phased?
I think I don't remember if we were holding damage towards the end because of cooldown timings, because we were forcefully pushing it. I don't know. I don't remember if we got to that point ever, or if it was just pump, get us as low as possible going to last phase. I don't remember how it was. It's been too long, but I couldn't say.
Yeah, I know we were going to swap it out for similar last phase damage, but better P2 damage to phase the boss like 1% lower or 2% lower. That was the swap.
Yeah, I don't remember if phase 2 damage mattered or not.
I think near the very end, I think when both of our guilds were killing it, it stopped mattering. But also the decision to sit warrior was something we weren't going to necessarily do on the fight. It was like a before the raid thing. It was like before the raid, if we want to bring warrior, but it's possible this class gets sat, which was kind of crazy because like arms warrior was literally perfect for that fight. I know in general Ben likes to. Also, we thought that prot warrior execute would have been really really good on that fight in the last phase. But you just ended up taking way too much damage to make good use out of it. Like Prot Warrior execute single target in BFA was actually really fucking good.
Yeah, those two tiers you guys did. I mean, that and also, I mean, Nyalofa, I think that was the one tier where we lost with the biggest margin out of all of them. That was not a fun tier for us. That was also the first time you went outside fully, I remember. We're still having rates leader playing. I don't know if that was the biggest impact. I think there was also some mistakes we made in other parts, but what do you think like was the biggest reason why there was a jump? Yeah, Nyalofa.
So outside the raid leading was good. The only thing I have with it having the biggest impact is I think of when outside the raid leading had the biggest impact in that raid, and I think it was definitely Il'gynoth. I think Il'gynoth was the raid where you needed like someone micromanaging that entire fight for the way that we killed it. Which, by the way, I fucking loved that fight. I know a lot of people hate Il'gynoth because they did the like no dispel strat, but I think the way we killed that boss in progression, I think us and Pieces, I think also did it, was like super super fun and very challenging. But the thing is Roger was outside the raid on that fight, also doing my exact role of calling every single dispel and like doing that. So I don't know if like we both had the same outside the raid leading situation on Il'gynoth. And then also the boss where we outplayed you guys and everyone else the most. Like the boss with the biggest difference was Drestagath. And I was in the boss on that. I was raid leading from I sat now on purpose because I felt like that was just a fight that was very YOLO'd and you just needed someone in the raid marking and telling people where to go near the end. And then I played that boss. So like the two bosses where we did really well, there wasn't really a difference in outside the raid leading. We
it's
either
true.
both had
Drestagath
one or
fucking
neither had
sucked,
one.
bro. We were trying to rocket science that shit,
that
and
just, I think tank damage difference mattered a lot.
couldn't.
Like I noticed that our tanks were like fucking cranking damage with corruption, and I don't know if that was happening in your all's guild as much, but I haven't looked too deep into that.
I mean, Drestagath, I 100% agree. So like we came in there and I remember
We just
that we
copied
were
our strat, right?
well, we were
That's
trying to like look at what you guys did and try to like rocket science it, make an idea out of it. In hindsight, you would be better off not seeing anything and just pressing W and hitting the fucking worm in front of
that's
you.
what we did.
That's how you
I
kill the
found that
boss.
so funny. I talked to Roger about this, and he told me that like you guys had a mage trial that like while you guys were killing some other boss, he just wrote down every single thing we did and when we pushed bosses and why.
It
And
was
then like
so
you
dumb.
guys just basically copy pasted it, which makes sense for people who are listening. Like this happens all the time. Oftentimes you may have a strat set out for a boss, even though Dressagath is a very weird strat boss. But like
Yeah.
you may have a strat set out, and then like another guild kills it, and there's not a real reason. It's time inefficient to try to do something different than something you know already works. So a lot of the times, even if it doesn't look great, you just do something that someone else did. So that's what they tried to do with ours. But our strat, I still to this day do not know how Dressagath works. I just like we just marked things.
Same.
And we just like I just marked things that looked good to kill, and then we just kind of made it work, and then we killed it like pretty decently fast, and had like a nice burn at the end on our last at the end of the fight. So if someone was trying to copy that exact YOLO, it's just gonna be like, dude, this is just worse than like planning it out. So, but it was just kind of like a YOLO boss. It was weird. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know why we killed that boss so fast. I genuinely don't.
Yeah, we were just stuck on it, trying to overcomplicate it.
Wait, did
That
that
was
same thing happen this raid? I think I heard that like you guys on Dathia, you got to Dathia and you basically tried to like copy the amount of people or healers we were sending up or something. And it ended up
yeah.
hurting you because we spent all of progression on that fight trying to kill the boss with like only 4 elementals instead of 5. So we were like under healing and we were, trying to go as far as we can. And then we didn't really change our strat when they nerfed it because we were just able to kill it right away. So like if you were to approach the boss after all those nerfs for the first time, you would have went in with just more healers or been safer. And I think that's what you guys went through, right?
Yeah, that we had the people dying on the platforms due to lack of healing. That was one thing, and that was super frustrating. Especially, you can look at a dev, and you can look at as a DPS player, and be very analytical about your personal cooldowns. There's nothing more frustrating than when you die pressing your personals how they're planned out, and then you still die. And that happened a lot.
True.
That happened a lot in on that fight, and that normally doesn't happen very often. And that was very frustrating because that's the first time I've actually felt like there was a lack of healing and I could do nothing about it. So that was a little bit annoying, 100%. And then we tried to do like a Weakauras for I don't know how long, and the Weakauras kept breaking. It was super frustrating, and I was against like a Weakauras in that fight. We just needed good raid leading.
The same
and-
thing happened to us.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. Continue. Sorry. It literally the exact same feeling.
And that was something I was against. Like I never felt like we needed a Weakauras for this mechanic. We just needed scribe to call, and that was it. And that's what we went with, and it worked out super.
We had this happen on Kurog where we had an absolute and total Weakauras fucking meltdown. Like just nothing worked. It was just everything. Just the simple Weakauras didn't work. It was like a when it rains it pours situation. Like assigning absolute 0 sides with a Weakauras. And dude, we were just wiping to the Weakauras just not working. And then we eventually were so off of it that we were like, dude, fuck Weakauras, full natty, and we just killed the boss. We were just like, dude, fucking forget healer reminders. Just call out healing CDs. We'll natty call absolute 0 soaks because nothing's working. And then we just killed it. And it was the most like, because I think you probably feel this way as well, where like, 2 things are true. You can use a Weakauras to help make yourself in the short term much better, and use it to remind you, and use it for anything you can. You want Weakauras to support you to where you can be as good of a damage and staying alive player as possible, and remove everything else if you can. But over time, that like that makes your awareness worse over years of time, for sure, because you are teaching yourself in the sake of being optimal in a short term scenario, which is in a race. You make everything that separates a good player between a great player handled by a computer, and that is something where on that fight I got so frustrated with it because I'm just like, dude, 3 years ago, old ass YOLO limit, we would have killed this boss like an hour ago, just never fucking with this shit at all, and just spreading out and figuring it out. And that boss fucking bugged me so much. I fucking hate Weakauras, man. Like I'm fine with like reminder Weakauras. I just think any Weakauras that like where people are reliant on them and they're just so fucking easy to do on their own, even though it's technically better to have it be automated, it's just so fucking frustrating. I just wish you could just play the game.
Yeah, it's important to know when that is as well. I remember we had this super complicated Weakauras for Dreadlords trying to deal with the mechanic of spreading the debuffs. Because yeah, in case you give a debuff to someone wrong, then it's an instant death. I mean, it's one of the later fights, right? That's what we expected going into the fight, and the mechanic just ended up being like super easy. And the only thing that you needed to do was not get hit by the green poop, right? That mechanic was just completely gone. It only became a problem if people just kept getting hit. So sometimes, I mean, that was a pre-progress thing, so it didn't really matter. But I do think there's some situations where we're trying to overcomplicate some strategies, and we're trying to Weakauras ourselves out of it. And especially these complicated Weakauras, a lot of times they just take too long to get perfect. The fear was one of them.
Yeah, the feeling of being able to progress a fight and having your entire raid chomping at the bit to pull it and kill it, and having to sit there and wait for Weakauras to be made or fixed is definitely one of the worst experiences I ever have in raid. That and I think the only thing that ever makes me mad in raid and tilts me, actually, I actually don't mind wiping ever, as long like I'll never get tilted to wiping except for one thing. If there's a problem to solve or something you could do on that pull and talk about to make better the next pull, I'm happy. I'll wipe forever, because that just means you're getting better. However good you are, you're getting better every pull. When you feel like there's nothing else to figure out and people are just like inting to things you figured out a long time ago, that is the worst feeling of all time. I can't hide it either. It's like you're just fucking mad, man. Like it just shouldn't happen.
I think that's every raid leader's weakness.
Yeah, it's so rough, man. Oh, sorry, you guys are just here listening to us talk about raid shit.
No, this is
for
a
like an
great
hour.
podcast, actually. Yeah, no, we're just chilling.
Just chilling.
No,
Yeah,
I
didn't
agree.
really happen. This didn't really happen after the raid. I had a few offers to talk. Well, Blizzard wanted to do an interview. I declined it.
Probably
Just
gonna
because
interview.
No.
How do players in Liquid deal with like their individual performance and optimizations when it comes to optimizing their personals, offensive CD, looking back at certain things, personal reminders, stuff like that? How do you usually do those things? Is that just up to the individual person's
I think
responsibility, or is there support internally?
there's definitely support internally. There are analysts who that is like kind of their job, at least to support in that. Like I think usually how it works is, let's just say Shakib wants a timer for his blurs in P1. And he's like, I've been blurring at the same time in P1. I just like a reminder for this one. He would just like message that to someone and it would be done for him. So like I guess there's that kind of support for any kind of reminder, I guess, during the raid. I think we use very similar reminder systems. It's like you basically just have them input it, and then we both have a program that puts that into your Weakauras automatically. So you're good there. And then I think it's mostly personal, right? It's like when you have small breaks or there's downtime in between pulls, that's the time for you to like kind of go back and watch a pull of you doing this and be like, oh, I could do that here. Actually, this is really interesting, and I noticed this raid is I think you guys do this all the time. You guys wake up and you guys look at our like what you probably watch a POV of like what someone who's playing your class in our guild is doing, just for literally any small thing that could be good. What's really interesting is we don't do that for you guys ever, and it's for a reason. It's because when you're like starting ahead and you know that like you're gonna enter Mythic first, you're gonna probably kill most of the like middle to like near the end bosses first. Looking at your all's just stream is a distraction. It is literally a distraction. You're learning nothing. You've already done that, right? So to prevent tilt and things like that, us watching your all's content, it can only tilt us if you kill a boss like faster than we think you're gonna kill it or something, or whatever. Like it literally makes no sense. But because of that, we kind of like don't look at your all's shit ever, because in that way it can only be negative. But that's not true on an end boss. We're always going to be on an end boss at the same time. And I think we could have looked at what you guys were doing more once we got to the boss and looked more through POVs in the past because of that. And it's interesting because if you guys watch their shit, like they probably have frequently watch POVs or watch what we were doing, but it makes sense because them watching us is because they're behind and they're learning things that will potentially help them. So like the dynamic is really, really different where like the psychology of going first and like almost feeling rushed, like you don't want to fall behind because you shouldn't, I guess, even though it'll naturally always happen when you sleep, is much different than starting behind where you know you just have to be as efficient as possible and know that you're going to catch up or hope that you catch up. I just think that's something that's like super weird.
It's funny you say that. Do you think like the dynamic in the guild changes once you get behind for the first time? Because
100%.
statistically speaking, we have never lost a tier against you guys as soon as we get ahead. You have never caught up again. And do you feel like that's because
That's not true.
what tier did that happen?
In Castle Nathria, at the end of the first week, you guys were at like 26% or something like that, and we were at 35 while we were doing our re-clear.
Was it the Nathrius? You mean?
Yeah, Nathrius.
Oh, okay.
We were never behind in Nazoth. Yeah, we were like a day and a half to 2 days ahead that whole raid.
But also, they weren't streaming their POVs, so there was no potential for any of that back then.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, but I mean, like even then though, like they were literally when they turned their stream back on again, they were literally ahead. Like they were ahead of us. So
That's
like that, yeah, they
There was a league log, I think, right? About something like that. I remember.
Well, to answer your question though, there is a difference. I think it depends on the situation, and I think this time we were not. In fact, that was a big point of emphasis going into this raid. Was, hey guys, in every single raid we go up against these guys, at some point they're going to pass us, because no matter what, whether we start a full day ahead of you guys, whether I think this raid in between maintenances we started 4 hours ahead of you guys, I think, with you guys starting 12 hours behind and then 8 hours of maintenance. No matter what, we could start 2 days ahead of them. At some point,
8 hours maintenance.
I calm down. They're going to have more efficient time, and they're going to pass us. The inevitability of Echo passing us is there. And the same thing for you guys. You guys know, and you probably train yourself to know that when you go to sleep, you know you're going to wake up and we're going to be ahead of you. And you have to show up to the event and know that you're going to play well and pass us as well. Right? You can't like let that affect you. But for your all's team, I think it's different. I'll get into that in a second. And it's because like you're built in from the very beginning, you're used to being behind. It's not a new feeling. You don't have to like work on that feeling. For us, I know that the psychology of it is that you feel rushed. And in the past, we have definitely the vibe of our raid when we're in the lead versus when we just initially lose the lead is very different. And I think in the past that was also a little bit on me. Like I felt that, and no matter however I feel, the entire rest of the raid will feel. That's always been true. And that was something we really focused on this raid. So this raid, I don't think it affected us at all. Like, we literally didn't look at it. That was kind of the whole point, was do not look at what they're doing and only focus on us, right? And I think that did hurt us a little bit on Razageth, because I think our players looking through your all's POVs would have actually like gained some insight and like, just different ideas. 2 heads are better than one kind of thing. Oh, this guy's popping this there kind of thing.
You actually have like a zero tolerance to like to like actually watch. Okay.
Yeah. We did not watch your all's POVs ever as players. They were not allowed to do that. And the reason why is because we tilted because of that in Sepulchre. Like specifically the way that Anduin went down. Like a lot of people will remember the Anduin thing. That thing was like pretty.
That was also partly on me. I said something I shouldn't have back then. Of course, I know I tilted you specifically for quite a long time after the Anduin thing, but. I got heated in the moment. You're very passionate. I remember what's it called? THD had a similar thing after Castle Nathria, screaming "fuck Echo." Like it's just, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't hate everyone in the guild. It's just when you're in it, everyone is passionate. I don't
think anyone know why Gingi or why THD did that.
Okay.
It's weird. Like he's just like a fucking weirdo. Like we saw that clip and we're like, why the fuck did you do that? Like he doesn't dislike Echo at all. He's just like a fucking weirdo. But yeah, the Anduin thing happened, and then obviously very tilted to that. And then we go to the next boss, and
just to completely close that one, by the way, did you guys actually not know about it when you killed it, that the balls were not working?
No.
You didn't hide it. It was just complete random. You just okay.
Yeah. So
that was the first pull that happened.
That was the first pull that ever happened. Yeah. So I'll explain how it worked. We got to that boss, and for a while in P3. Were you guys in P3 when we were in P3? I don't remember if you guys had a P3 poll or not.
I don't remember. Maybe we've seen it like a
Okay,
shortlist something.
so-
Phase 2 was the hard part. Anyway, I remember.
So in fact, maybe someone in my guild, if they're listening, I don't know if they are, could actually link me. We have clips of this. The divine stars were fucking huge in P3. They were killing you from like 5 yards away from their animation. Like it had to be fixed. People were just dying all the time to stars that were nowhere near them. And we were basically just waiting on this fix to continue progressing. It was like you basically had to be guessing where the divine star animation was. It was just like 3 to 4 times as big as it should have been. And it wasn't. It's the same divine star animation that was in the first phase. I guess just different spell ID. They got the spell size wrong. Whatever. So we had been used to that. So when we got into that last phase on the pull that we killed it, we weren't getting hit by them. But people didn't know they weren't getting hit by them because we just knew that their hitbox was infinitely smaller. Like as soon as someone didn't die from them going like 2 yards to the left of them, they were like, oh, they fixed it. So we didn't tell the difference between them not being overly big to them not hitting at all. Like the fix they made was they just made either impossible or extremely hard for them to actually kill you. And then it was basically we were just focusing on the kill. But then we watched it afterwards. And actually, I think it was within like 10 seconds of us killing the boss. One of our healers was like, yo, those things weren't hitting us at all, right? Like they were just like, they realized like during the pull, but they weren't going to say it during the pull. They're like, yo, those things, like, I got hit by one of those things. It didn't do any damage to me. But like, you're less likely to see or feel that because you were so used to getting hit by the bigger ones that, you know, if one went by you, you were just like, oh, whatever. Right. So that was basically that. And then we killed it. And then we watched some POVs and we're like, oh, those things were like turbo not working. But that actually really went against our favor. We were really ahead on that boss. And then
that is true.
And then it fucked us. The reason why it was so tilting was because we were so ahead and so like genuinely that boss is dead within like 5 P3 pulls with those things hitting you or not. We wouldn't have killed at that pull. Multiple people would have died to those things, including the tanks at the end. But that boss was very close to dead. And it would have been a lot of learning, or obviously more learning for you guys. So the thing that tilted us the most was the fact that Blizzard fucked it up like that. And then we killed the boss, went to Lords of Dread, and then we see you guys completely change your P3 strat. And then all you have to do is just fucking stand still and never move for anything because you know that it would be unfair for them to like fix the balls at that point. So we're like, oh, what the fuck? So now they get to like, you know, instantly catch up basically. And then Lords of Dread was a combination of a few things, but I think it was a failure on my part of allowing people in our guild to feel that way. Because you have to keep in mind what had happened to us previous in the raid. And this, we had to teach ourselves. I'm glad we taught ourselves this for this raid. Because Sepulchre, we kept running into bosses that had to be nerfed. We got to Lihivam, and it had to be nerfed insane. And then not only did they nerf it, they like changed our strat and like some weird shit, and then we went back and killed it. You get to Halandris, you know they have to nerf the fuck out of it. You get to Anduin, they nerf the fuck out of it like 3 times. And then you get to Lords of Dread, the 4th boss in a row, and it's like, okay, fucking here we go again. Now the reality is it was killable, and in fact, there's actually a message that I sent to Blizzard. I could maybe scroll back and find it, but the gist of it is, are you guys sure about this Enrage? We would have to kill this boss probably 20 to 30 seconds into the Enrage currently to kill it, which obviously shows that we knew it was killable going into the Enrage. We just assume, hey, the last 4 bosses are overtuned as fuck and had to be nerfed. I really doubt Blizzard intentionally wants you to kill a boss 20 seconds past their Enrage. You know, Enrage is like a pretty normal thing that like is showing you where they think the fight should end, I guess. And I'm telling them that their damage is off again. And it's like, okay, well, we don't know if they're going to fix it, but we know we have to learn 2 bosses now, and we can go to either one. Do we spend the last 3 hours of our raid going to Rygalon or spending more time on Lords of Dread when it's possible that they nerf it tomorrow? Not saying it was unkillable, just they might nerf this because they just nerfed 4 bosses in a row that were also overtuned. So that was what we did. We went and spent some time on Rygalon, but because of that, people in our guild were so fed up with us doing 4 bosses in a row that needed heavy nerfs. They were just like, dude, this is so unfun. Why can't they just fucking tune this game properly? And a few of them put out some really cringe tweets about like being like, you know, this is so fucking annoying, basically, which it was annoying, but like it showed weakness. And then we went and did Rygalon, and we learned a lot about Rygalon that set us up for the next day. And then we woke up, and you guys killed Lords of Dread after they tweeted that cringe shit. And you could tell in your all's mentality, and you could maybe confirm if this is true. I think you guys seeing those tweets really fueled you. it was like, oh, these guys think this fucking boss is unkillable, which wasn't true. We didn't actually think that, but like those guys were just popping off. And like,
I mean,
oh, these guys think this boss is unkillable. This boss is definitely killable. Fuck them.
I mean, part of competition and progress, of course, without being toxic, is also a little bit of the mental aspect, right? You get the momentum when you see your other competitor a little bit down. It fuels you. Of course, it does. But I'm the type of person that if it's flame or if someone talks shit to me or whatever, bro, I don't give a fuck. I would assume that you also be okay. If you have a tilt moment, you go out, get some fresh air, you come back in energized, and you get this, the raid leader vibe, because your impact and the way you speak in the raid, everything, it affects the whole fucking guild, and that's super important, right? You cannot tilt. Even you cannot be human. You just need to shake it off. That's super important. And you don't strike me as the type to be tilted for like a full day. What was the difference there?
Wait, on which? On Lords of
On
Dread?
yeah, exactly. Going from Anduin to Lords of Dread, you had like
For
probably the
specific
longest
characters?
tilt moment I've ever seen from you.
Yeah, that was because of you. I was
Oh.
you
Okay.
tilted me off the fucking face of the earth. I
Okay.
don't know why it fucking made me so mad that. Okay, it was actually two things. I'll keep it a fucking buck. This
Okay.
is exactly what made me mad. You obviously got mad in the heat of the moment, and you were like, dude, these guys are fucking faking that these things aren't working. Like, clearly they're going through you. And then I saw that, and I'm like, dude, that just fucking sent me to the Shadow Realm initially, but that's not what actually did it. It's the fact that you rightfully realized that was fucking wrong, and then you tweeted, oh, by the way, sorry I said this shit, whatever. And then I look through the replies on this tweet, and it's just like, oh, fucking good guy, Gingi. Fucking, oh, this guy. What a guy.
You
Just,
got
I mean,
guy
just-
on Twitter. That's the reason you got tilted by a guy.
dude,
You got by an
this guy
egg.
this guy's so humble. He's just, oh, he apologized. It's like, what do you mean? He fucking caused all of this. Like the amount of parasocial, jobless viewers that came into my chat for the rest of that day, saying just the most ridiculous shit, and it was just because he said that for no goddamn fucking reason. And then at the end of
good.
that, I have to look at Twitter. So yeah, basically, Twitter and that lived rent free in my head for at least an entire day. And then yeah, that's why looking at Twitter and Twitch is now hard banned at all of our events.
Okay.
So.
Twitter, Omega lol.
Went after the Menti.
fuck that,
Oh shit. No, but like I was just, of course, yeah. I don't know. That was
Dude,
my bad.
You feel bad about it, but you impacted your team's chance to win inadvertently or not in that raid. Like you fucking
It's mental
sent-
warfare. It's good.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
exactly,
fucking
same.
sent me off the goddamn cliff. So that was that was definitely real. We were over it by Rygalon, and we had a good time on Jailer. But yeah, specifically, I think that was a pretty impactful point in the race. Was that, and that is something. I mean, I would like to say that's actually something that I'm really good at normally. That's why the Anduin thing is weird, because I'm like kind of known for someone who doesn't really like. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. You will never see me be fake happy, fake mad. That does not happen. I am exactly who I am at all times. But I stay very productive, and I don't tilt in raids. I used to. I'd like teach myself not to. It's very easy as a raid leader to get mad at everything that isn't going your way, right? But if you understand people are human, make mistakes, and are getting better, like you don't get mad as long as you're problem solving. But dude, that fucking broke me. That was the first time in probably 2 raids I hard tilted. I can't think of a single time in this raid that just happened where I tilted, really. But that you broke my you were living rent free for like an entire 24 hours.
Oh gosh. Oh. Yeah, I was just surprised that back then seeing it. I thought things like that you would just be like, yeah, what a fucking idiot, and then you move on, kind of thing.
I think it struck a special chord. So I played Final Fantasy a bit in that previous season.
No.
Oh
and
shit.
Running into people in that game was the most cringe thing I've ever dealt with. We did
What the
these blind raids with
yeah.
some friends.
I remember now. You got a
Yeah.
lot of like community negative feedback in back to back to back.
So yeah, and
oh,
specifically the main
yeah.
one.
I I remember
which
this.
kind of picked up. It was a lot of things at first. They hated me because I was the add-on guy, and then I was they're very against add-ons in that game.
Quotations blind testing.
Yeah,
I remember.
So then eventually they start like saying that we were doing blind progression, but not really. Like we wanted to like show off, I guess. So instead of doing real blind progression, we were just like looking up guides on and we were all like in cahoots together and shit. So that shit happened, and that tilted the fuck out of me. Because if anything, I can be a lot of things, but I'm definitely like never not real with my chat or with my stream. I'm always doing something that is, I think, like pretty honest and genuine, and I don't really make shit up. So that specifically like struck a chord with me, and then the raid right after that. Oh, and then there's also another thing too. So Echo got the idea of doing the blind raids from me, and then started doing it, and then Echo started becoming like the team that they root for because they're like, oh, this is the real blind progression or whatever the fuck. And then all that shit, right? So like I know all these people, all these like cringe weirdos in that community are Echo fans. So I'm like, okay. So then this happens to Echo from us, and the insinuation is that we were cheating on purpose and not talking about it and lying about it, like the dishonesty and lying about it. So I think, if I'm being 100% honest, that the reason why that specifically tilted me that much was a culmination of a lot of things.
Yeah, I remember there was a guy that literally made a YouTube video calling you out, and I think that one kind of blew up as well. That was sick.
Yeah. Basically, the claim at the end of all of that is like, because most of those things they said that I came up with as well were like things that Nagura and other people came up with. They weren't even my strats. They were like other people's ideas that they were claiming as evidence that we looked up these fights ahead of time, like certain things that like the party finder did. It's like the end of all of it was everyone in our group was cheating, but we were like keeping it quiet, or like certain people were and other people weren't. But the idea of like 8 people on that many hours on stream keeping all of that quiet, and also none of them thinking that me or anyone else was looking up guides, it was just a very weird dynamic. But it basically just stemmed from, as soon as I started playing, I was the only person streaming with add-ons, and there was clearly a target. It was like, we don't fucking like this guy, something about him, don't like him. And even before this, there was like 10 other things that there was so many Reddit posts about like, this guy's doing this. They blamed J-Funk for cheating and using a mod on the E4S was the boss. They blamed because he sounded like a robot when he opened his mic. There's a Reddit post of people thinking we were using a voice to speech thing because they assumed when he said
I remember that.
fourth quadrant that he sounded like, dude, it was anything. It was literally anything they could throw
Well,
at
they
me
think it
or
was
in
like
our
some sort of
direction.
like big wigs or something. It was really J-Funk.
Yeah. Yeah, they thought, yeah. So his name was that for a while. But yeah, so just back to the Anduin thing. That was a culmination of a lot of stuff.
Okay.
I think to tilt me that hard. For sure.
I mean, that's understandable. I guess it's also because
understandable. I mean, I still shouldn't do it. Like, it's embarrassing. Like allowing yourself, knowing how much my ability to solve problems and also my attitude matters to the guild, allowing that to ever hurt us is like, that can't happen, right? Regardless of the situation. So I mean, like, obviously, like I'll never look back on that positively,
but it's understandable that you care, right? Like, you're also a person, you're a streamer, and like community feedback and criticism can be like a tilting thing. But like you said yourself as well, a lot of these people that were against you were also a lot of Echo fans. My viewers doing the progress as well probably gone in and like tried to troll you a lot. As much as they just want to get under your skin, as much as possible. But you also have a lot of supporters, right? Just about not letting like that negativity like be the focus and skip past all of the positivity, right? And that because I mean, there's a lot of that too. You just saw all of the Max is not fake blind testing, blah blah blah. They knew about Anduin, whatever the fuck it is, like fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's why it's hard for me. I think this is kind of weird. I feel like when Echo gets a lot of hate towards you guys for whenever that is, it's directed to your main channel because your main channel gets the most viewers.
Yeah.
I think one weird, and actually you used to have the most viewers. I think when your all's channel was still getting off the ground. I forget what rate it was. So maybe you can actually relate to this a little bit. But for us, it's always been my channel. Obviously, that's good. Well, we split a lot of our money from the race, or most of it, but it's been good in
Production
those
diff,
ways.
bro. Production diff.
Yeah. Also, I think
Oh my god.
one thing that it's had a negative effect on.
He didn't reply to
If
that.
someone in Echo wants to say some if some Echo
Good.
player wants to say some crazy shit, they're not saying it in the Team Liquid channel where no one's looking. They're saying it to me, and they say it to me all year round because I stream all year round. So it's created this very weird dynamic where I don't talk to Echo people a lot, and I need to to give myself motivation to compete against you guys. I also need to you probably do that to get an edge sometimes. You're just like, oh, fuck these guys. You do that that can give you an advantage in like your vigorousness and your preparation. And then the only interaction I have with people from Echo is seeing what their fans say. Either me in my DMs or me in my chat. And it definitely helps me prepare because but it also can turn you into the Joker where you don't have any interaction with another team and all you do is build motivation off of seeing what their fans say. And if you don't have any conversations with people in their guild, you really start to, kind of just assume that a lot of that stuff comes from what they say as well. I think a lot of bad takes I see from your all's viewers definitely are somewhat especially the 24-hour difference thing. That shit gets me good. It gets me fucking good.
Maybe this isn't a start drama, but I feel like I can't think of any time that Echo's gotten hate.
Yeah, I was
what's the last thing that people have hated Echo on?
The biggest thing was the TGP thing. Like, did you guys get a lot of shit for that?
The Plague Wars only from China.
Yeah. Oh, so surprisingly not a lot then, I guess.
Yeah, I know Aster Wise fans were kind of they were really tilted about this, but everyone just sees everyone's about TGP. Everyone still remembers back to that as next level strat or whatever. That's
I have a theory. I have a theory for why this is based on what Growl said. And you guys tell me if you think I'm wrong. I'm not positive that I'm right. It's just what I think might be true. Fans of our guild and fans of me specifically, which I think a lot of those things correlate. I'm a very I would like to think that I go on my stream and I just am myself. I'm pretty honest about stuff, about me. I'll talk about stuff I normally wouldn't. I keep the viewers into it, and basically I think that promotes a fan base of people that do not have a parasocial relationship with me because I'm pretty self-deprecating. As well as our guild, we just
really I think it's the opposite. The more honest you are, and the more you know what I mean. Well, really? I always thought that was the opposite. The more down to earth and honest you are, and the more relatable you are, the more likely it is for people to get weird.
Yeah. He's the champion of the civilians.
Maybe. I mean, you guys, you maybe know. The one thing I've noticed with Gingi's fans, which I think a lot of Gingi fans are also hardcore Echo fans. Gingi, do you remember when you got sat? Was it in Sepulchre?
Yeah, I was playing Hunter and we sat the Hunter on the last two bosses.
Okay, do you remember what happened in your all's chat when that happened? At least from what I heard, it sounded like your fans were literally fucking slandering Echo in their main channel.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, okay.
Getting actually mad that you were not in the raid. They were like, what the fuck are you doing? Bring Gingi into the raid.
Yeah, it's true. I had to tell these fuckers, you're not my fan if you flame my teammates. This is a decision. What are you guys doing?
So that was a really interesting thing, and I actually think that's kind of significant, because I don't think that could possibly fucking happen to our guild. There's no player or me or anything where they could be left out of something and then the fans of that person would act like that, right? Even though it's against your will. You're not asking them to act like this. And
name one. What do you think?
Wait, what'd you say? I missed it.
A person that would go into the Liquid chat and be pissed if they got sat. When Gingi got sat on the last two bosses of Sepulchre, all of his fans were in his chat. I think there's one person that would definitely their fans
fired
would
up in
outrage.
JPC because they stream, but there's absolutely
not
no
fired
way.
up. Definitely JPC though.
Yeah, I was thinking JPC.
And it wouldn't. I'm not saying it all is JPC's fault. By the way,
maybe yeah.
He's got some fans, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I think
that
to act like that, it's two things. It's obviously I think it's pretty parasocial and it's a very deep emotional bond to the streamer, but I also think it's passion level. And I think the passion level of European fans in general, there's not a lot of American video game fans that are nearly as passionate about esports or even sports in their country that is close to what is true in Europe in a lot of cases, especially the poorer parts of Europe with their local football teams. That like the level of fandom, it just means something different. It's deeper.
Oh yeah, most NA people don't give a shit.
Warcraft especially. Like the closest thing in NA might be like SEC football fandom or something like that, but I mean it's nothing close to Europe. And I think it's that feverish fandom.
Yeah.
And the kind of parasocial bond with the streamer that makes them like that. Like dude, after this raid, man, I felt some ways about the raid. I didn't say shit to anyone. I wasn't on Twitter for an entire month. I didn't see what anyone else said. I hated the way it ended, but there was no fucking way.
Even that, by the way, even that, because you don't say anything, you get criticism for not being a good sport, by the way. Like, it doesn't matter what you do.
But there's nothing to do. I couldn't do anything. Like, and that, to be honest, that part of it to me kind of makes me hate the race. I love that. It is literally the most fun thing that I do. Like I love it's the creative challenge of dealing with this is like super awesome. And I love my teammates. We have such a good vibe, stuff like that. But man do I wish I could throw if it didn't mean sacrificing 20 people's paychecks, I'd go back to doing this shit off stream and just hanging out with your boys in a heartbeat. The extra shit that has come with this being televised is really shitty for me, and I don't like dealing with it at all, and it makes me not actually look forward to these races because it's the only time of the year that I have to deal with these people. And I don't talk about the race outside of today. I literally do not talk about the race on my stream ever, even though it's probably the biggest thing on my stream year round. But it's not what my stream is about, and it's not what I do. I literally fucking hate it.
That's a good point, like, because I think both our streams right now, we're like both in the same position that I think the Race Towards First has done so much for our streams, even outside of the race. So it has had a lot of positive effect on our day-to-day streams nowadays. But I do agree. I mean, some people would say that it fuels the race more, the entertainment, that you have this NA-EU clash. But
it's the only reason it has viewers.
Yeah.
You realize if we were both EU or both NA, that the viewership would, I mean, I don't even know what it would be, but it would be insanely low. I think the region rivalry drives a huge part of the viewership for sure.
Oh yeah.
But it's
100%.
also the extremely negative part that makes me not want to do it at all.
I mean, that's basically League of Legends for me. Like, when it's just Korea winning every single time, I'm not very invested in League of Legends.
But that's where I feel a little bit different. That negativity that you feel, I don't see it coming my way. Maybe it's because you get more of it on your stream. Maybe there's more of it on the Echo main channel, but like because it's being, I'm not sure how good your moderators are doing a job, like being really on point of on everything. But it's like casters. You're just sitting there, you're rate leading, and you're not really focused on the stream, right? But like all of the viewership, all of the hate gets directed towards your channel. But there's literally no place for it in the Echo main channel. So maybe we don't really see it so much on our side. And all of our players, like we don't even have our chat open. We don't see that shit. So maybe you are like one of the only ones that really feel it.
Well, it's not even during the race. I don't look at my chat during the race. My mods ban the fuck out of anyone who's super toxic during the race, even to the point where sometimes people accidentally get banned for typing like normal
I remember
shit.
That guy.
Like someone will just come into my stream and just get banned for being like fucking EU best. And then you just get fucking banned forever because the two people around them were like, you fucking clown American fat fuck, or just whatever the fuck they say. You know,
oh my God.
Like,
yeah.
And that's what happens, right? It's not during the race because I don't look at it during the race. It's what I have to hear outside of the race. Like us getting disparaged for like coming in second or something, and while playing really well. Like last raid, like that Menti B happened at the end. We played fucking insane last raid up until the last boss. In this raid, we played really, really well. We played really well in the last 3 raids that we've lost. There hasn't been a time where like we weren't close. We were doing really good. And the amount of time that I have to deal with people like slander, like, dude, let's look at the random person who's in the MDI this week and comes in second in this tournament. They don't win. They come in second. What kind of flame and hate do you think those people get?
Nothing.
They get grats, actually, probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
Congrats on going to globals, bro.
Bro, what kind of hate and slander does the guild who comes third in the race get?
I mean, of course, it's different because
It's
it doesn't matter. Like
congratulations.
both guilds right now are like really insane, and the difference is in most cases like very small in a rate tier. We're talking like half a day, a couple hours, whatever it is. But if you come in second, you're not the second place. You're a loser, and you'll be a loser for until the next year. And we felt that for 2 tiers back to back as well, and that's feeling fucking sucks. 100%.
Yeah, that was probably one of the only times you guys. That's actually interesting. Like in your entire time playing WoW, was that like year or year and a half or whatever of us winning? Was that like one of the hardest times for you? Because you actually don't lose a lot, right? Like historically, like you've won basically every MDI. You've won most world first races.
Yeah, it's fucking sucked, and it wasn't easy either with because there was the crossover and Lofa. I remember we actually Ben even joined us after that point. And then the whole thing with Method happened on top of that, and then the Echo remake and stuff like that. It was not the easiest period, you can say the least. That was actually the one time in like my gaming career where I felt I got hate for something that was completely out of my control, and it hurt me a lot because of what type of thing it was that you were being accused of. I think that was the worst part for me, and for a lot of the players, it hurt a lot of the players and internally within the guild.
Do you think that affected you guys in Nathria?
At that point, had moved on a little bit from it. We didn't really see a lot of it from like in the chats or anything like that. It was kind of like a closed chapter, and so I felt like we had moved on. But there was still some things we had to fix internally. First time scribe outside raid leading and stuff like that. So we still had to polish some of our prep a bit, which we did, and we went extra hard in Sanctum. And then we kind of like just been optimizing more and more and going harder every single tier, like trying, even though we win, we of course want to make sure that we optimize on the things that we felt like we could have done better last time. And I think that's just been the dynamic.
That's another good question. I think I noticed that from the Neurals Guild. The first time we beat you all, we noticed that you made a lot of sweeping changes. I think you guys were looking to maybe replace your tanks for a while, but you didn't do it until you lost. And then it seemed like it was one of the first things you did, as well as some other roster stuff.
Yeah, it was also
feel like when you won all of BFA, do you think it allowed you to be complacent until you were shown that you could lose?
Yes, to a degree. Like we felt like we could have. Scribe wanted to play, of course. Taking the step outside is a big step. I don't know how you feel about it. If you still sometimes you miss playing the game, miss being inside the raiding progression, or if you're like you're fine with being on the outside. But that was kind of like Scribe likes playing the game. He loves raiding and things like that, and he just took the sacrifice because it was best for the guild. Sko was because of the position he had within the organization, but it is something that we've been wanting to change for a long time. Mainly because it felt like Sko couldn't really keep up with the requirements of being like a hardcore raider, running the business and everything like that. He wasn't putting the same time as everyone else was because he realistically couldn't, and that was kind of affecting a little bit in terms of the tanking performance. So it was definitely something we wanted to change for a long time, but we just didn't do it because we didn't have to. So it was only after we lost that we got like a reality check and like said, okay, now it's time. We need to do it now.
Yeah, I think being outside, it's okay. I think during the race it's good because it's not like, oh well, I don't get to have that much fun anymore. Because I feel like the time you spend playing the game, the amount of effort you spend doing that, you can just add that effort into whatever you're doing. Obviously, it's best for the team, and that's the only thing that matters. But you can actually feel fulfilled because there's more you can do by being outside the raid. It's not like something's being taken away from you in a way. You can watch more POVs, you can handle more things, you can do more research in between pulls. You're less mentally exhausted from doing all of that while also playing every single pull, all that shit. Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone misses it. Who's doing this? In fact, I actually think 21st Man's actually overrated. I think there's a lot of times,
Penta?
and I think our guild.
What
feels
the
this more than
fuck is
yours,
that
but I
message,
think
bro?
Roger Brown is an extremely good and suitable raid leader.
Gone for
and
life.
He's in your roles raid at any given time, and we don't really have that. And that is something to where I feel like me being in the raid would be really impactful, like for sure. Obviously, the things that comes with that is obviously while you're turbo raid leading early pulls, your damage won't be great, and then it'll be great later. When it's like time to kill, which is like the only time it really matters. And there's like that slight optimization, but the amount of things you can change by actually being in the thick of it is a lot. I mean, I do that on my own. I purposefully don't kill these bosses for the first time with my guild after they're way more geared and are going to one-shot it. I progress with my own alt team that I do outside of like our normal guild raids to do that. And I think it's important that you go through that process and learn that all the things that go into that, and not only to keep you more up to date for the next year, but also, to challenge yourself and to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be the best. And I've seen while doing that, I can say this without a shadow of a doubt, that team that I'm raid leading, if I was raid leading them from outside the raid instead of playing, we would be a significantly worse team, like significantly worse. And I think there's a little, now obviously the content isn't as hard as what we're doing in the race, and our guild obviously has far better players that are in this group. But that, just that still does apply, and a lot of it isn't player skill. A lot of it is just being able to make quick swaps from being inside of it, kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't really know. I just know that, dude. Also, just quick shout out, your guild, if you're listening to this, should never 21st man raid lead. It makes no sense outside of going for world first. It literally, unless like someone doesn't want to play the game at all.
That's my guild.
It doesn't make sense. There's no reason to make that sacrifice unless it's not a sacrifice for you. But I'm pretty sure Scripe and I would both, like in a perfect world, would rather play. I still think it might be better. I'm actually like, I don't know. I think it's definitely obviously had a lot of influence. But like as we talked about earlier, I don't know how much 21st Man mattered as much in Nyalotha. I doubt you'd see huge differences with it not being that way.
Okay. I mean, you get to play during farm anyway. So like making that sacrifice leading up to progress, I guess, is not too bad. Would you say you're washed as a player?
Definitely not.
Okay.
I mean, I'm playing right now with a bunch of among other things, the people I recruited were all people who parse 99 or 100 on any of their logs I picked up before bringing them into Mythic. A couple pro players from other games. And I fucking crank every single pull, probably last on deaths. Now, raiding in the guild, the last time I played, it's a long time ago. I was tanking because I had to. I think I was one of the better players in the guild. Someone who joined your guild who recently is no longer there, Jeeth. This person and I do not get along whatsoever. It ended really rough in our guild. Him and I do not get along. But that guy would probably still tell you, and he said to my face and others that when I was playing, he thinks I was one of the best players in the guild. If I had to not raid lead and play, and all I had to do is focus on my own character, I think I would 100% play at a world first level, no question. I don't know if the amount that it takes out of you as a player to raid lead and play would be enough to make up for the difference of whoever the next best person on your roster is if you're just trying to focus on purely mechanical things. But I think the ability of having a raid leader inside the raid would be different than that. Yeah.
I mean, the outside raid leader is more than raid leading nowadays. Like you said, it's problem solving. It's like looking at the what went wrong, looking at the VOD from previous poll, and then being able to come up with a solution quickly and then progressing faster. Like most of the time, we have Scribe doing all of that shit. Like he's not even raid leading half the time. We have like mirrors coming in and then doing the raid leading for him while he figures out strategies and whatnot. Comes up with solutions.
That's what raid leading is. Like
Yeah.
you keep mentioning Miraz comes in and raid leading. Like like making the calls during a fight, I feel like is often realized as the thing that is the most obvious to a viewer, but it's not actually raid leading. Raid like 80% of raid leading is what you're saying Scripe does when Mirez is raid leading. It's or like calling things. It's problem solving. Your job is to quickly, and what separates a good from bad raid leader is probably two things mainly, and that is the atmosphere and like accountability of your group. Of like, if someone in your group messes up, Gingi, how many times last year do you think someone messed up and they purposefully didn't admit to it and you had to like search who did something wrong? It literally never happens, right? Like that cannot happen at this level.
It's a problem we had in previous tiers, and something that we have been discussing that it just cannot happen. If you make a mistake, we talk about it, what happened, you move on or whatever. We see if we can fix it, and also individual responsibilities. That if there's a certain mechanic that is like a little bit difficult, or if you have another job assignment, then you need to handle certain things. Then you need to come up with a solution to make it easier for you. Reminder, Weakauras, whatever it is, to not have those mistakes happen, because otherwise you're just wasting pulls, and that's something that I think we've gotten better at over the course of many tiers.
That has to come from the top too. Like I think your raid needs to know that you can't make mistakes often from that position, but if you do, you have to be willing to also say that I fucked up as well, just so other people feel comfortable in saying that for themselves. And that's like just an accountability and raid atmosphere thing. And I think basically the other half of it, like 45%, is just your ability to see a problem on a boss that hasn't been progressed before and solve that problem as efficiently as you can and move on from that. And that's most of raid leading. It's not calling things. And the reason that you don't see a lot of people very good at that, and actually I think one of the biggest reasons why there's really been only 2 guilds that have realistically had a chance of winning any race in the past 4 years, is how do you get good at that? If you're Method, if you're Pieces, if you're BDG, how do you actually get good at problem solving an end boss when every single time you get there, we've already figured it out? You know what I mean? I think it's like impossible to overcome that.
I mean, at that point, you just settle for third. I mean, I think that's the position where Pieces and Method is, or Pieces were and Method is in right now. Is that they need to do something different if they want to try and take the step up to be world's first contender. They cannot be where they are now. 100%. And it is a good point you said, like raid atmosphere. I think it's important to be able to discuss things and be open about, have a good conversation with your teammates, not be afraid to ask questions, not be afraid to come with suggestions, and also not be afraid to say you fucked up. I think it only ever happens if someone makes a mistake and they're not 100% sure if it was them or not. Then some cases you have to look into it. There's something going to happen that they might not even have noticed, But people are usually good at speaking up when they fuck up. That's not really a problem anymore.
That was like one of the first things we did in our guild was make it so you always instantly make you like say something when you mess up, and like we almost overdid it. Like basically what I wanted is like if a new player came into our guild, which like people can come from different atmospheres. It's very normal in some guilds. Actually, there's a like a US guild that we've actually got a lot of our players from, and their raid leader would literally just fucking berate people for making mistakes. So I noticed when we would recruit often good players from these teams, they would have the tendency of being defensive when you ask them things because that's what they were taught. That's what happened to them for years. And if I'm asking you something, it's not personal and I'm not berating you, but I need to know the answer and I'm going to be direct and we have to figure out the answer and move on to be efficient. And that can only come if you are instantly willing to acknowledge your mistake and learn from it, kind of thing. And we've had to teach a lot of our players that. So basically we overdo it. If you miss a soak and you're right next to it as a new player, what I would want when that goes off is I want some other player who is even 5 yards further from you to be like, oh, that was my fault. I could have soaked that. And then that new player looks at that other player and they're like, oh, holy fuck, that guy, like that guy and I both know that I should have soaked that, but that guy like took the fall for it because he doesn't give a fuck and he just wants to move on and says he could have did it, kind of thing. And I think that kind of stuff really has to exist.
100%.
To like coexist. Yeah.
I think that's the difference between like a really good player being self-critical, looking at potential solutions that you could have done, rather than what someone else. Look at like what always look at what you could have done better, what you could have improved on. I think if you have that mindset, go onto something good, and you're gonna improve as a player.
It's hard to get that way though. Like you said, even with your guild, it took you a long time. There were tiers where you even won, where you felt like that wasn't great. You have to. It's like something you constantly have to work on to make people, especially as you get a bunch of new players, is you have to just make sure that they know that that is the expectation. It's really hard, really hard. Like the amount of people in chat, like how many of you guys raid in a guild where you feel like it's full accountability? You never have to look at something. Like with 20 people, that is an insane amount of people. It's impossible to procure that. Like seriously. Um, it's there's actually probably I don't know, there's probably less than 5, I'm just making this up, like 5 guilds probably that exist that have like a true atmosphere like that. It's a requirement of being good.
Would you say that the mindset of the players in your guild has changed? Like now you have a lot of European recruits, right? How many players do you have from Europe nowadays? Do you think that their mindset is like different from the Americans or very similar? Um, what is your like a first impression?
So what I've noticed from European players, which I actually really enjoy because this is how I am, is they're very direct, and I like direct. I don't like beating around the bush. I think especially in
call them toxic.
I think
they're passionate.
well, I would say none of the people in our guild that we've recruited from EU are even close to toxic.
Yeah.
It's just that they're honest and they just fucking get to the point. And I think a lot of people, especially North American players, when they listen to European teams, they misunderstand that because in American culture, it's normal to try to be more nice, I guess, and you beat around the bush instead of getting to things.
You just
That like when you hear it, yeah, exactly. When you hear it from a European team, you think you're like, oh, they're like mad at each other, but really it's just a culture difference. And in fact, I'd rather be in a guild that it was even slightly toxic, if we're being honest, if it meant that they actually got to the point and solved problems faster than, beating around the bush and being nice about it. And like a lot of American teams are. I have noticed that not too much in our guild because our guild was kind of like that before they came here. But we have 12 European raiders now, and probably growing. I mean, it's like 12 including analysts, maybe it's 10. But like I think that number is only going to get bigger. If you look at the EU group finder in Mythic Plus, if you look at the amount of competitive, like trying to be good at the game WoW guilds that exist in EU compared to NA, it's probably times 5. Literally like 5 times as many good guilds. There is almost no talent being developed in NA. There's almost no talent being developed in NA. So if we're continuing to get better and recruiting the best players, they're almost always going to come from EU at this point. Like NA rating outside of us are dead.
I didn't even know Impact and Rivens were EU.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty surprising.
We have a lot of, Impact's a fucking goddamn beast. But yeah, I mean, we've also to move our raid times. It's very interesting. We raid, I think we're like the earliest raiding NA guild, man. We raid it like, we start our raid 2 hours ago during the week because we don't want our European players to be up at like 5 in the morning. Because we dealt with that for a while, especially with Wolf. Because like Wolf raided here for a while. Wolf did not leave on bad terms. I think he got sat for a whole raid, and that kind of sucked. And maybe that had some reason why he left. But like, he still is cool with the guild. It's just he was going to university and doing EU MDI times while raiding an NA farm raid schedule. You guys can kind of wrap your head around that time requirement. That's like fucking crazy. Like you're just expected to be awake like 20 hours a day. It doesn't add up.
Rating at all with MDI is ridiculous. Like that's insane if he was even doing that, because pretty much me and Dorky and everyone else, when we were doing full schedule, we were just like, fuck no, we're not raiding. We raid one clear a week. I couldn't even imagine having to show up to multiple raids a week while doing MDI.
Yeah, so you kind of get the point. But as far as like atmosphere, I don't think the atmosphere is different at all. I actually think most of our Europeans are like our guild was already direct, so they were not seen as like our guild is often not seen as direct because we laugh and joke around a lot. But that can only happen because if anything ever real comes up, we immediately get to it and it's not personal. And that's the only reason we can kind of act like that. And I think a lot of the European players have like fit into that pretty well.
Also doing like when you guys progress, I noticed that you guys this is something that we used to do in the past a lot. Back in like old school days, off stream, Serenity, we were memeing so much, and also in early method days, doing polls and doing progression and whatnot, and it usually went fine. Nowadays, we just cannot do it. As soon as you start memeing, someone dies, someone fucks up, someone forgets their rally. I don't know. It's just always some random shit happens. So now we're like super strict. We're just listening to raid leading and we're just focused. But you guys still meme around a lot. Do you feel like that has like an impact on your performance at all? Because we just stopped doing it completely.
Yes and no. I think there are times where it happens too much, and people lose focus, and you lose like like a pull or something a day to something like that, where you're like, all right, we're going a little too hard. But I actually think it helps people relax and stay focused as well. Because I think something that a lot of the viewers won't know that you definitely know is like you're up for like 15, 16 hours a day playing, and you do not have 15 to 16 hours of like really good play. Like it's extremely mentally exhausting, right? You probably have like somewhere, especially after a few days, like 9 to 10 to 11 hours, which is why taking breaks and things like that are good. But like staying mentally relaxed and things like that is very important. And it's just very simple. Number one, we don't try to do that. That's not forced. That's just, we just happen to find a bunch of like really fucking funny people that randomly are good at WoW and are in our guild, and they just say funny ass shit all the time. So that's one of it. That's part of it. But the other part is I think people actually focus more. I'll give you an example. If we rated, and I find this really fascinating, if we rated like you all raid where it's 100% serious and like that kind of stuff isn't allowed because you feel like it's inefficient, we would 100% play worse. Like I'm positive. In fact, we've tried. Like we're like, maybe we should try or care more, but that never really changed anything, and it just really wasn't us. It was fake. It was like we were trying to be someone we weren't. And that didn't really have a positive effect. I would say when we're playing our best is when there is light memeing going on, we're laughing in between pulls, and we're having like efficient, good progression. When we're fully serious, we are usually tilting and playing bad. And when we meme too much, it's bad. It's about finding a right balance. But I really think more than anything, it's just the guilds. And maybe this is me because I'm like kind of an idiot, but like we just are who we are. We just have like a distinct guild personality, and I think we just try to stick to that. I noticed in some other guilds when we won those 2 raids, I noticed other guilds that were normally not you guys, but I noticed other guilds that were like behind us try to be more fun as if it was like a reason that we were winning, like we were just laughing more, I guess. And it seemed so put on, and like they were like trying to be light in raid, like intentionally, even though it wasn't natural. And that is kind of like what it would be like for us to not be like that. It would be like forcing our.
That's cringe.
Oh my God. It's turbo cringe. Yeah, it's
that's
turbo cringe.
Nice of cringe in chat.
Like forcing us
Don't
to
do
be
that.
someone we're not.
Oh. Yeah.
We did it more after Sepulcher. I think after Sepulcher, we're like, damn, losing turbo sucks. So let's do everything we can going into next raid to make sure that like we do everything possible to win. We're not looking at Twitch chat. We're not looking at this. We're just so many things changed. Took testing more seriously, all those things. And we even talked about like, dude, let's just fucking be fully serious. But it just can't happen. It's just not who we are. I don't think it's a huge negative. I'd say we lose on average 1 pull a day to letting it go too far, like on average, which I don't think is that bad. And I think it allows players to enjoy it more.
And also, this is something that people discuss every time. If especially, and it can also be annoying for you guys, like every time you win, the head start is always being put into question, right? How much realistically do you think you guys starting first is an advantage, if you even think it's an advantage?
All right, so first of all, this tilts the fuck out of me, and also this is something
here we go. Here we go. Get ready.
I feel like this is something that I feel like you all, some of you guys for sure. I think there's no way your fans can be this like brain dead about the head start without you guys at least playing into it a little bit. It has to be there because I understand you guys are mad about it, but like
called Twitch chat brain dead.
Bro, I the amount of brain dead people that I interact with, man. They're not all brain dead, but there's a lot of them. like let's just look at the 2 times we won, right? We won in Nyalotha by like 2 days.
Yeah.
Like anyone calling head start for that, I don't even know what to say, right?
But that one was definitely we got outplayed. There's no question.
And in Castle Nathria, we started our release times at that point were 16 hours ahead of you guys. We had 10 hours of maintenance before we killed Denathrius. So at even the best argument would be that we had 6 hours to play ahead of you guys by the time the race was over. And we won by more than 16 hours.
Yeah.
So I don't see the argument.
That was actually that tier specifically. I think was because internally within the guild, the race was lost, kind of, and I think it affected our performance towards the end of the progress. But I think
same thing happened to us this raid, killing Razagath as well. By the way,
if there was one tier where, let's say, we didn't care about you guys getting the kill first, it didn't strike us at all mentally. I think Casnafria was the one tier where we would actually have a chance of winning on time, looking at the reset times, right? I think if there was one tier where we could have done it, it was that tier.
Now, while I'll accept that, I'll also throw one more rebuttal.
Yeah.
One of the biggest advantages that exists for the NA guilds with the increased reset time is actually the end of week 1 in a 2-week race where you guys will continue to progress. And obviously, at that point in the raid, we're at the point where if there was never a reset every single day, we would wake up, pass you, we would go to sleep, you pass us, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But on Tuesday, we get to re-clear while you guys progress. So we're getting gear and we're getting info. These are typically like high efficiency times for us because we don't really usually have an opportunity to look at what you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's the worst day for us, like mentally.
Yeah,
like we know that that's happening. Yeah.
Exactly. But in Castle Nathria, you guys turned your streams off for like a day and a half. And, you know, we did the entire last boss without any information, basically, until we had our whole strat with nothing of what you guys were doing. So I would say that in a scenario where you guys are streaming and we did start at the same time, I think that would have also trended in our favor slightly as well. But I think it would have been close. But I don't know if it would be enough to see. That's where I get off on that. So you're saying as a competitor, and I can respect that with no advantage. I think in Castle Nathria we would have had a chance to win. Because you're saying that even though you killed it, 10 hours after we had a head start after, you're saying that you killed it 10 hours later because you were tilted. That I can accept that from you. I can't accept that from one of your fans being like, no, you didn't actually win because you started before this team, and that math doesn't even add up. Like even this raid, the amount of times I saw people this raid saying, dude, Lamau, you fucking lost with a 16-hour advantage. First of all, 2 things about that. Not even 16 hours anymore. It's fucking 12 hours. And also, we got fucking 8 hours of maintenance again that other regions are not seeing. So at the very best, this raid, we start 4 hours ahead of them. And even regardless of all of that, here's what gets me. Is even in a scenario where we start 16 hours ahead of you, no maintenance, just fucking straight up ahead of you, our raids are offset, no matter what, including you guys starting ahead, no matter what, 4 days into the race, we're just waking up and passing the other team anyway. So what real advantage is there? The only advantage is killing some early stuff first. You get better stream viewership on the first day. And if it's killed right around a reset, you get massive time advantages and potentially can kill the boss before the other team even sees it.
It would only be...
Those things haven't happened. None of them have happened ever. So like the discrediting of our wins and the constant conversation about how we're somehow like fucking cheating and getting ahead of you guys from your fans is fucking ridiculous. And it's definitely one of the things that makes me hate the fuck out of doing this for sure.
I like how you hold the fans in the Twitch chatter so accountable to this issue. That's the funniest thing. Is just like, I mean,
if you dealt with them as much as I
love
did,
the chatters as much as the next guy, but dude, sometimes I don't know,
man,
especially with something like,
fuck the chatters.
Dude, you're so much bigger, and then the race world first is even so much bigger. I mean, first of all, you called the chat brain dead like a second ago.
As based.
I don't know. I think like I mean, I understand why it's so fucking stressful and so tilting. I would probably be tilted out of my mind too, but
all I'll say is I promise that I want a global release more than anyone else because I'd never have to deal with this shit ever again. I think it actually amplifies the amount of hate we get, and I don't think it's changed the result of any race that's happened so far at all.
Yeah,
the
I mean, it
all the
hasn't.
EU people, they say they want global release, and then they'll actually be on NA's maintenance schedule, and they'll have twice as much fucking maintenance to deal with all the time. They'll be like, "Oh, actually, this sucks."
I would actually say that it's been close to like I think that's the reason it's been close. On Sylvanas, imagine a world where we didn't kill it on the last day of reset, and you just go in, re-clear, you one-shot the boss, right? It didn't happen. That would have been fucking. That would have sucked.
That would have been literal fucking. That would have been the same thing as this time. We would have killed the boss, and then people would have tried to decide the world first for how long after the reset it took to re-clear and kill it. Just like how we woke up today, literally fresh off of waking up on Razagath, obviously tilted as fuck. Like, I don't want to hear it from any Echo competitor or fan. Dude, if you guys were in that position where they nerf that boss later that night after you go to sleep, or nerf that boss the previous night and we kill it before you wake up, you would have been just as fucking tilted. Fucking money back guarantee. And we had to play through that and kill that boss. No one wanted to be there. And that feeling is fucking horrible. And that's just, I don't know, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about, man.
How do you feel Blizzard should have handled this situation? Should they just have not nerfed the boss at all?
They should just make easier bosses.
Here's what they should do. You ready?
Don't overtune them.
Fucking tune the raid correctly. And it's not
shit.
and it's not like they haven't done this before. They did this for fucking years. Where you go in, we have way more gear than everyone else, just like now. And we progress through the entire raid with what do you think in a normal raid, like before Sepulchre? Like maybe one or two, like I remember we killed Orgazoa. Remember you guys were going to bed and they nerfed Orgazoa and we killed it? How much time efficiency do you think that lost you guys? Like 2 hours? 3 hours? Like literally like the fucking tiniest shit of all time. Like in previous raids on average, right? And then this raid is just like every single boss is just like no matter what guild is there, you just get stuck at a fucking roadblock. It affected both guilds multiple times, and it's really it's more than anything, it's just not fun. And
Wait, I have a chatter question. How much time did
before you say that,
the update was coming?
Before I already answered that earlier. The only the thing I was talking about with Razagath was like that boss took 2 weeks because of all the time we were sitting there waiting for nerfs, and it also caused them to.
Oh fuck! You just dismissed Yuma's question. That oh shit!
The first phase is hard. The first intermission is hard. They've now nerfed those multiple times. P2 is easy. P2 intermission is easier, and the P3 intermission, if you were able to just pull it on pull like Fallen Avatar style, you could one-shot it. Like that's how easy the last phase of an end boss is, because they just had to give up and over nerf it because they were running out of time for Christmas, right? I don't know. It's the last 2 raids. What I think they need to do better is whatever the fuck they changed in the last year, revert all of it. They tuned raids way better than the last 2 for years, and now it's bad, and I don't know why it's bad. But, yeah. All right, Growl, you asked me what time we knew about the update, because this was something that
how long when you knew? I mean, I've heard multiple things.
Well, yeah, a lot of people spread some false information about that, and I didn't respond to any of it because I didn't respond to anything after the
Yo, Iran, what's up, bro? I'm doing great. Why is the robot voice?
Weren't a lot of people in our corner for sure. When that happened, we went to bed. We had been raiding from 11 a.m. Pacific time, which is the earliest we could have possibly raided on not only reset day, but the re-clear day. That is when our maintenance was over, not when the servers are supposed to come up at 7. 11 is when they came up. So we started our raid at 11. We had no other choice. And that's when we set our sleep schedule to that too. We didn't sit around AFK for 4 hours. We optimized our sleep. So our raid time during the first week and the second week was 11 a.m. Pacific time to about 1 a.m. Pacific time. So like a 14-hour-ish raid. Sometimes we went 15 if we were close. And then the day before it was nerfed, we went to bed early to wake up early. Went to bed at midnight instead of 1 a.m., which is only a 13-hour day. And then we decided to wake up 1 hour early to go for a boss kill the next day. We wake up an hour before our raid time. We see that there is a note in the Discord that they're nerfing the boss. We walk to the facility. We sit down at our computer. They kill the boss as I hit start stream. That is the exact chain of events. We did not oversleep. We did not know about it and start our raid late. We didn't raid too late the previous night. The amount of like incorrect information about things trying to like cope that we didn't get completely fucked. Look, I said this at the beginning, man. I think Echo, in multiple occasions on Razageth, did things faster than we did. I like said that from the beginning. I said that like pretty much right after the race was over. So at the end of all of it, I think if they played this race out, I think we could have won. Trying to do a DPS check over the weekend, but I think they were playing a little better than we did. But to imply that nerf timing did not absolutely fucking destroy any hope of competitiveness at the end of the race is just an extremely biased take.
I think at the end of the day, I don't think any raid tier so far where we've been competing against each other that the best team has not won in either case. And whatever outcome, global release, head start, I think the outcome would have been the same in terms of the performance that was shown while we were playing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been a tier where we won, where you guys deserved it, or vice versa. But that being said, I do think that in any competition, you want to be on the same level. Just so there is absolutely zero question about it, because whether it's a small factor or a big factor, there should just not be any difference in a competition. Be on the same level. And I think that's why I would love to see it. And having global release, maybe potentially playing with NA players, that would also maybe solve some of the problems that is in M+, with raids, being able to play with, each other, I think might solve some problems on the NA side. Pretty sure that the technology exists.
Yeah. Yeah. It is 2023 after all. I will say though, this is definitely bringing up some dude, me staying silent for that month and just ignoring all of this because saying anything or staying silent no matter what I do, I get shit on. I have no idea what any of my guildmates said. I heard the CEO of Liquid said some shit on Twitter. Never read it. I have no idea.
You got heat from that too as well. But the thing is, like the eyes are on you guys immediately. They're just waiting for you to make like one snappy comment, one wrong thing, and they're ready. They're not ready on me, by the way. I don't know. It's only the Americans they're targeting. So you guys have a little bit more ruffle over there. I think the European fans, like you said, they have no chill. They go at you hard.
Yeah, and the thing that got me the most though was people just making shit up for that month. Like you came in today and you asked me, like, can you explain the like oversleeping thing or like starting your raid late? That just goes to show you that like the general consensus of that, based on I don't even know who the fuck said all this shit, was that we like started our raid late and like overslept.
Yeah, I mean, this
is made up. It's literally made up. We literally woke up early.
This is what I was so surprised. I was like, okay, you guys got early information. You have the opportunity to wake everyone up, but for some reason you're too lazy to do it. That's what most people think, by the way. And I'm very surprised that you weren't there to play when the nerf came in, which is, of course, you've explained that's not the truth.
Yeah. But I can never clarify it because if I speak up at all, I'm salty we lost, right? So. See, even in chat, 10 a.m. is not early, bro. Like, I feel like you guys are totally missing the point. Like, what are you? You're like trying to bend so many things to say that like we should have like only been awake for 8 hours the previous day to be ready for a nerf in the morning that you never know is going to happen. And they also were not frequently nerfing things in the morning either. You're just treating your raid like a normal raid day, and our raid time was there for a reason. You know, yeah. What if you got 3 hours of sleep and woke up at 7 a.m. with no notice as to why you would do that?
But what do you think about the communication? I'm not in that Discord that you guys are in, but do you feel like the communication between the top guilds and Blizzard regarding nerfs and what they want to do, has it been better? Do you think they're doing a good job? What do you think they should improve on in the future with anything really? Communication between the guilds, nerf timings, like how do they handle that?
This is what I said earlier. I don't know. I don't know when they needed to nerf that boss. There was no time for them to nerf that boss that does not fuck someone over. Literally impossible. There was no time to nerf it where I guess people in hindsight are like, oh, well, they should have done it later in the day, or they should have given way more notice so both guilds could get prepared and wake up and are ready to do it. But like, I don't know, Blizzard's not paying attention to that shit. They just slam it. I don't know. I left that Discord as soon as that happened.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Was other cases like that during progress that was not Razak affiliated that you feel like was also like completely crazy?
I would say that the communication has been fine. It's been better than it has in the past. I would say it was a little weird in Sepulchre because that was the first raid. But yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit better in that raid. Like, I don't know. We were like pulling Dathia and we were like, hey, so this is bullshit. And we were like, yeah, well, we'll look into it. They make sure not to give you any like heads up. In the past, they were like giving some heads up on stuff, and now all the information on when anything is going to get nerfed is like universal across both teams. So yeah, I don't know. The communication, I don't know. Like I said, I left the Discord. I don't want to. I think we're better off just not hearing anything from Blizzard and just playing the game. For sure. Also, dude, I can't. There's stuff in chat. People are saying Echo. We're starting around 7. By the way, what have I not explained? Right? I had to have gone wrong.
Guys, you're getting to him.
I feel
okay.
I feel like I must have said something wrong.
Yeah.
Echo didn't have maintenance. They started at Realm Up. We had 4-hour maintenance. Our time to start playing was 4 hours later. That's why our times are different. Please. Yeah. I'm literally gonna die if I keep seeing. No one should have to read that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You have any more questions? I think all the other people got tired of us. They fucking ran out of here.
No, I am not tired of this. I'm having a great time.
I hope it's not too boring. I mean, from what I heard, like, yeah, chat, are you enjoying this conversation? I mean, I'm enjoying it. I get a lot of more insight as well into Liquid, because there's a lot of things I don't know. So it's kind of fun to get to know the competitors a little bit more. They have similar mindsets, different things like that. But I think we kind of a little bit in the same boat, I guess, in a lot of areas. But of course, I think you have been one of the people that have gotten quite a lot of heat, and I think that's because you are who you are. Speak your mind, and always remember that some people will like it, some people won't. Just don't give a fuck, bro.
I feel like I wonder if you ever deal with this. I think it's like a weird thing because, like, I feel like as a streamer, it's easy for a lot of streamers to look at people in their chat as a number, right? Where
they're just bots,
or they're just bots, yeah. But I don't know, if you look at it at a more human level than that, each one of those people are people, right? It's kind of hard to imagine. Like right now, like I haven't even checked how many viewers I have. Like I'm just imagining like an auditorium with this many people sitting down and spending their time.
Oh yeah, I cannot imagine talking to that many people. I've said that.
Right? Isn't it crazy?
Before.
Okay,
yeah,
but the second
you
you humanize them, which is natural because they are all humans, they're spending their time watching you and subbing to you and stuff. As soon as you humanize them, what they say matters to you. And I don't think I'm alone in being someone who really, really focuses on the negative stuff instead of the positive. I could read 1,000 positive comments, but as soon as someone fucking says we overslept the race and has no fucking clue what they're talking about, that's the only thing I'm going to think about all day, because I just cannot stand people being confidently wrong. And Yeah, that gets to me a lot. I think it gets to a lot of people, but I don't know. I feel like if you view your chat as people and not numbers, it's really easy to have the haters say some shit that fucks you up. But the only way to really shield yourself from that is to look at all of them as a number.
But in cases like this, because this also happens in my chats, what I like to do is to educate them, and I educate them in a funny way so they know that they're stupid as fuck and everyone laughs about it and it's great content. I think that's a really good way to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's also just anytime you have thousands of viewers, you know, if you just statistically look at it, there's just going to be, well, the more viewers and the more popularity you get, the more haters you get as well. And then also, like you said, speaking your mind will always rub people the wrong way. So you will always have people that don't like you for that. But Zerwo's, you're 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a good number. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. It's just I just am always conflicted about the race, just because, like, if I'm being completely honest, like 2 years ago when races were coming up, even when we were currently not the winners of the previous race, I was just excited to compete and excited to go up against you guys because it's always super close and it's really fun. And just the whole process of, forget any other team.
Yo, fam, what's up?
Of going through PTR and problem solving and finding the perfect comp and recruiting and trying new players and all of those things. That's always like really fascinating. And I really look forward to that. I genuinely do not look forward to new races that come out now. They're super fun, but all the baggage that comes with it, the fucking cringe stuff that people say, the incorrect takes about how the last raid ended, it's like basically like Twitch chat has to decide whether you win or lose if you are allowed to be happy for a few months or something, makes me definitely really really not enjoy doing it as much, even though I'd never stop doing it. Like, let me be clear. Like, I mean, I like my teammates too much and I am not quitting. It's just really not fun. Like it used to be, at least.
Do you think that's been because I'm a fucking shitty loser as well? Like, do you think it's because of you losing, or have you also felt that way after winning? Because I remember like one clip that you posted on social media. It was a video. It was very emotional. I have a dog myself. I know you have dogs too. It was like a very emotional clip when you came home after winning and you saw them after a long time, and they just greeted you, jumped on you, and you were just so genuinely happy. And I mean, that is like, there's no greater feeling than that. But on the opposite, like on the downside, if you then lose, bro, I'm fucking miserable when I lose. I hate it. But
you have to hate it. Like,
yeah.
I feel like if anyone doesn't absolutely despise losing, like literal
I mean, it just means you're
depression
passionate.
coming from losing, then you probably, I mean, it sounds stupid, but you probably don't care enough about what you're doing. Like, that's what I tell myself. Like if I'm not absolutely wrecked by losing, I don't know if I put my all into making sure that we won. Right? I think that's like kind of natural if you put everything into it. To answer your question, I don't know. Because there's two major factors. Well, I mean, number one, it definitely matters, right? Because if we win, I don't get nearly as much or any hate, so that's good. Like that. So losing matters in that way as well. It's not even just the pain of losing; it's just what you have to read for 6 months, I guess. But the thing that I can't tell is where I've really started to feel like that is the last 2 raids, which we did happen to lose, but I didn't feel this way after Sanctum. At all. I ended Sanctum. Dude, when I lose, I want someone to beat the fuck out of me. Because then at the end of that, you can almost leave and be like, we tried our best, but goddamn, that team was just way too good. And it's easy to accept that, I think. And you go back to the drawing board and you move on. Like, I can just tell you, like, losing Sanctum, we had a fucking DC on a pull 1% below our best P3 push. And we had a healer DC in the last phase, and we ended up not killing it. Like, we were potentially a DC away of killing it that night, and then having to deal with the crazy shit the next day of them killing it within 16 hours of us and that whole crazy shit. But even then, we lost, and I was like, dude, they fucking outplayed the fuck out of us on Kel'Thuzad. They played better on Painsmith. We caught up on Sylvanas, but it didn't matter because they just play better than us. And that was it. I didn't feel bad at all. After losing Sepulcher, it was like, dude, we were playing so well, and it just went on this long, and just at some point along that super long period of time, we just lost it, you know? And that's a shitty way to lose because you feel like you beat yourself. And then this raid, the fucking nerf thing, like that, I will probably never look at that positively. I try not to ever think about it, and I never talk about it. But like that feels like shit, right? So the way we lost the last two raids, specifically, losing in general, and then also the combination of the fact that the last two raids, winning or losing, have been infinitely less fun to progress than previous raids because of the running into a brick wall, it getting nerfed, and then continuing thing, which has never happened before but is now a thing. That part has made me. I mean, you probably feel that as well. I mean, it's infinitely less fun to progress bosses like that. So like that has just taken a lot of the fun out of it in general.
Killing a boss after it's been killed already is like, no, it's not enjoyable. I mean, at that point, tears already done in your head at that point, right? You play to win, and if you don't win, it's like over.
Well, it's not even, I'm not even talking about the winning thing as much. I'm talking about like specifically the like, you're ready to progress the P1 intermission, but you can't because all you can do is go to one side with 20 people and then wait for a
like
nerf.
that.
And then you get to the Storm Surge and you keep trying it and you break it, and then it's like, okay, this has to get nerfed. And then you get to the last phase. That didn't need to get nerfed, but it did because of the time. But
I'm actually surprised that they fucked up so badly in Retrospectives regarding this. I think the last time I progressed a boss that was this badly tuned or over-tuned was Kil'jaeden back in Weakauras. I think that was just as much off the mark as Retrospectives was, where you literally just can progress a certain part of the fight, and then you're just stuck, and you're just sitting there waiting for nerfs. Back then, it was off-stream, so people didn't really have as much eyes on it. But that's literally several expansions like before this. I would have assumed that Blizzard are now getting a good grasp of tuning, and it seems in a lot of cases they do it perfectly. And then you see something like Sanctum. I think they did Painsmith perfectly. I think they did even Soul Render, like an early boss, was also like on point. And then they fuck up with. I think they fucked up with Fate Scribe. I think it was too easy.
Same with Guardian too.
Yeah, Guardian was complete troll.
It was a huge letdown. Guardian, first of all, has to follow Sludge Fist, which is maybe one of the best like those kind of bosses of all time. But it had so much complexity in testing. You could like charge different batteries at different points. Before they buffed the damage of the thing, you could like overheal or underheal and like maybe kill it faster. Like there was like a lot of different strats involved, and they made it the most basic boss ever and able to be killed in like one pull. And then obviously Kel'Thuzad. Holy shit.
But he got cheesed the fuck out of him. But yeah, that was a weird boss, bro. That's one of the bosses where I think like we had a very big tactical advantage if streaming wasn't actually there. You guys didn't know about the what's it called, or at least didn't play around the tank trinkets, right? Of suiciding people.
So we actually did know about that, but not before the raid. Before you guys got to Kel'Thuzad, you guys killed Kel'Thuzad before we woke up, or as we were waking up. We turned our streams off early and we farmed normal tank trinkets for that boss before you guys got to it. But you guys used it before we used it. But we didn't do it before. We didn't like do it during Heroic Week. We like found out, we were like, oh, tank trinket would be insane for this. This works. We found out we literally did it live and found out it worked. And we're like, oh, we can probably cheat death this. So we got the other tank in DH's trinket.
Okay.
The big thing for you guys there was just getting the timing right on repeating the phase and making it all the same. I really wonder what that fight designer thought watching his like creation just get absolutely fucking scienced out like that.
Yeah. Oh, we found this out on PTR, and it just stayed. I'm very surprised. We didn't really expect it to go live like this. A lot of these things, but yeah. I mean, we noticed very fast in PTR, and then we actually just stopped doing it on PTR testing in hopes of that they wouldn't figure it out.
So we did the same thing. we actually on PTR we did the super long wait, keep the cooldowns up strat. Like literally, your all strat was a more advanced version of it, but we were like, oh, this is how it works. And then we got hard baited. We had our bigwigs guy who was his first tier with us. He like posted in the Kel'Thuzad channel. He's like, oh, they changed the actual sequencing. It no longer does this. It will always like continue its cast sequence based on when you phase it. It doesn't repeat anymore. And we're like, oh fuck, that whole strat doesn't work. But we never tested it because like this was at the this was like when we were doing Mythic. And then we just went into the boss and just did the other thing and didn't test it. It was really fucking stupid. Because we literally, I had an interview with one of your analysts. Like, there was some like preach interview, Race World First thing, and like there was like multiple guilds there. And I literally like alluded to that you could break the boss this way if they don't fix it. And whoever was your analyst at the time told me, they were like, yeah. I was like, we thought you all like knew how it worked. And I was like, yeah, we did, and then we just fucking didn't do it. It's fucking dumb. Dude, but another one that's rated was this. How do you get Dathia that wrong? I know you guys weren't doing Dathia at the time, but we had all platforms dead and lasted like a minute and a half after it was dead. And we wiped it like 20%. Like, and then they just were like, oh, wait, fuck. We just forgot an entire elemental and also like nerf the boss's health or something like that. Like, it, instead of, they removed all the challenge from the fight because it would have been really challenging, but then they nerfed the health and added the thing. I just don't like, where do you get the numbers that you can kill that boss in 4 elementals week 1, you know? Or at least as a mid-tier boss. I just don't understand. That never used to happen. Like, how do you get Painsmith perfect but then do Dathia like that?
Another thing as well, and this is what I love this, by the way, about the Sepulchre. And I was very surprised that they actually made it work. I mean, you could argue that it wasn't perfect, but I think Raglan tuning and, I mean, Dreadlords, and Dreadlords, of course, it's probably not intended that you want to just kill the boss past in rage, but the top guilds figured out ways to deal with that. Not being able to raid test the bosses on PTR before they come out, I would love to see more of that personally. I think it was so much better for the game.
Dude, could you imagine a world where there's global release and we zone in with no dungeon journal and the dungeon journals get released as the bosses die? And like you're just progressing it natty. Like there's no information. There's no PTR information. You are learning the boss's name when you zone in. That would be fucking sick. That would be like so cool.
I would love it. I would love it.
There's probably no world where that happens, and if not for one reason, and that's because the game is you know what, like 99.99% of the game, it would be no different for them, and it would only be for us. And in general, they don't make any decisions when that's the logic.
You think so? You don't think people enjoy seeing content for the first time in the game? I think people would love that.
People would love to watch it, but I feel like people would complain that they were less prepared for their raids because of that. Even though by the time they actually raided, there would be multiple dungeon journals out, and they would be able to. They'd be able to see that. They'd be able to have it already by the time they raid. Even if it was just mythic mechanics being new, even something like that as like a stepping stone. Like basically, there's no mythic dungeon journal. You just get to a mythic boss and it does something totally different, and you are seeing that for the first time would be huge. Because we're killing bosses like weeks ahead of the general public, right? And then even other top guilds, usually it's days. They would have easily enough time to hotfix in the journal after it's dead before anyone else got to it.
I feel like nowadays, like even the early bosses, people have to do like tons of heroic clears, and like heroic Razagev tuning was completely ridiculous this time around. That was probably one of the hardest heroic bosses I think that we've ever had to kill. I don't remember a boss that was that hard on heroic.
Anduin before they nerfed it in Sepulchre, the one that only you and us killed, and then they nerfed it.
Yeah,
right
that
after.
one was also.
I feel like that was harder. That boss was fucking insane. The shields on heroic were like like 3 million or something in Sepulchre.
Yeah, I remember actually. That's some cracked shit.
I was gonna say something about oh fuck, I forgot.
We're talking about what's it called? Dungeon journals. Going in, zoning in, new raid.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a pipe dream, right? They're never gonna do that. Like I mean, they would if they really cared. I don't know. I get the global release argument for them, but you're right that I feel like they would have to unite the two realms. They would unite the two regions before they could do global release, because then that breaks their entire logic of why it would be bad.
Yeah, I think it would be great for the game.
All right, Dorky, you got anything, bud?
Oh, I was just talking about how like I never liked it when I had to back in more casual guilds where I'd have to like do homework before a raid. You know how they'd always be like, "Oh, all right, everyone, make sure you look up a boss fight video on this specific boss before you come to raid."
That's a good point, actually. Like everyone would be in the raid figuring things out for the first time. So everything leading up to that, you wouldn't have to do anything because you couldn't do anything.
You'd watch streams of it, but yeah,
But I'm talking like like straight up heroic guilds or even before that.
You're right, because they have like what are those YouTube guides called? Fat Boss guides or whatever that people watch before watch before it comes out. You would be like figuring it out. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually surprised. Well, not too surprised that there aren't more people who do blind progression in WoW. Like in Final Fantasy, for example, that game has pretty challenging raid content, and there's actually a decent bit of the community that intentionally doesn't look up anything, and like, well, it's not too many, but like an okay amount of people that like try to figure it out on their own. Like certainly more than a couple groups. Like literally in WoW, the only people who are doing a boss like blind are the first team to kill it. Right? That's it. And then after that, every other team is in their best interest to look at it. And in lower guilds, you could progress the whole raid while figuring it all out yourself and using your own strats and stuff. But then you'd just be like wasting 20 people's time, you know? You'd be like progressing for like an extra month or some shit more. Doesn't really make sense. You'd have a lot more
much more
enjoyment
enjoyable experience when you're like actually doing the fights. What's the word? I don't want to say like authentically, but you know, it's a different experience for sure.
How many pulls subscribe in Final Fantasy, bro?
Of no global release.
Crazy.
Is actually 4 echo.
How many pulls
I
they have?
remember actually this in a interview with Roger Brown after Nyalotha, and he was like, that was the least fun I've ever had in any raid. And the reason why is they didn't get to figure out any bosses. By the time they got to a boss, we either had it almost dead or dead, and they didn't get to actually go through the like fun problem solving raid thing. They were just always copying, which is what every other guild does besides both of our guilds. And the only reason we can do that on every fight is because we start ahead. So, like,
that fucking sucked. Like that was the first time we had that dynamic where we just got to a boss. You guys were already like close to killing it, and we just like at that point had a full strat already in front of us, and we just copied it, and we were forever behind. It sucked so hard.
And to think that's actually what every other guild does every single raid.
Yep.
No matter what. That is, and you're talking about the difference between how much that sucks versus normal, and that's literally the normal experience for everyone else.
Yeah, I do think that there is something about the process of killing a boss, right? It's not just about killing it, but if you come up with, I think that's also why people enjoy doing blind raiding now in Final Fantasy, is because there's something about coming up with it yourself. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if that's what everyone feels like. I also think that some people are limited on time, and they will have to progress for a lot longer if they have to come up with things themselves than actually just copying a strategy. But it's also our mindset is to win, whereas some of the people that are copying the strats, they're just trying to kill the bosses and trying to get the highest world rank they can, right? But we're sitting here trying to beat a team, and all we can do is just copy their strategy. That was like our worst tier by far I think I've ever been a part of, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's also just the main reason that the world first race, I feel like viewers have this utopia in mind where like in a couple years there's just like 3 to 5 teams in the world first race that could win, like that are close. It's just it's an impossibility. There's no way. It's like you have to you don't get that experience of figuring out the stuff on your own. When you get a good player, hey, guess what happened to Pieces, BDGs, or Fat Shark Yes, or any of their guilds in the last 3 years who had some player that was just the best in their guild? 90% of the time, they're instantly yoinked into one of our guilds, right? So like anytime you're
It's true.
building something and you actually develop talent, it just gets taken.
Except for
and that's how it's always going to be.
Loafus
That's
and
not
a
anyone doing
shine.
anything wrong. Everyone's out for themselves. That's how it's always going
They're
to be.
staying there. They're
And
stuck.
then also, they don't get practice to learn that stuff, and it's just how do you develop any momentum, you know?
Gingi, what is your take on smaller raid sizes? Do you prefer them, or do you think 20 is really good?
I think 20 is it's hard for most guilds to get 20 really, really good players. Usually in a lot of guilds, there will be a handful or maybe even 10 really good players, and then they're struggling to get like a really good roster. And the rest of the part, I think that's why a lot of people or guilds are also disbanding. I think for the health of WoW rating in general, I think adding 10-man rating would
Oh, hell.
only be positive. I
I'm
think
on
for
the
a
same
lot of
camp.
guilds. Yeah.
I think if they made World of Warcraft, if this was a fresh game, even in the last 3 to 5 years, I think the raid size is 10 or lower. But I don't know if reducing the raid size from 20 would be the best decision now because there's 38 specs and like 20 mans actually function really, really well. The only issue with 20 man is zero issue with the integrity of like how good a 20 man raid is. It's just that it's hard to get that many people on a schedule. Like really, really hard. And it's really hard to get the main thing you need in any guild, and that's skill parity. You want people in general, it doesn't matter how good, but you want people to be generally around the same skill level because if you're the person who's not as good, you feel bad. You're trying your hardest and you feel bad. And if you're one of the better players, you feel like people are holding you back. I'm pretty sure all of you have experienced one or both of those things. And no one likes to be a part of that. And with smaller group sizes, you can just avoid that a lot easier.
With the current WoW system, it wouldn't really work though. I like we have so many class buffs and whatnot. It would kind of be a problem. I don't know. I like Legion days when there was no class buffs, but at the same time, we do get a lot of different class. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's
Yeah, I
more
was
of like a
just-
problem of WoW currently rather than the raids being 10 man.
Mm.
Like I feel like if they can address those issues, that would just like open up so much more.
The only issue with having 10 man and 20 man is 10 man limits their boss design ability for 20 man a lot. Like that was actually an issue back when 25s and 10 mans were a thing. Was there would randomly be bosses that were super easy for 10 man or super easy for 25 man, and other random bosses that were like insanely easy for 25 man, but like the hardest boss ever on 10 man for some reason. So like it was like super hard for them to actually balance it. And I think their entire reason for making Mythic was like, we want to make, you know, if we only have one difficulty to prepare for in one group size, we can make better raid content. And the raid content for a long time has been really fucking good. So like I would just worry that if they tried to do 2, it would make raids worse.
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer if it was just one.
Definitely something to think about though. I really wonder what would happen, man. Like I'm trying to imagine it's like a new expansion and Blizzard makes the decision to like go to a 10 man. Like 10 mans are now like the top raid difficulty. I think that would be
I think it would only be positive.
I think it would be good for the game. But man, I don't know what the fuck I would do with half my roster. Just tell them to fuck
You just
off,
have
I guess.
Liquid Team B.
Yeah, Liquid Team B.
This would also open up more tank slots. I don't think about it.
Oh yeah, the ratio of the amount of players in the game that tank would go up relative to other roles
Yep.
because tanks stay the same, and the amount of DPS gets halved. Healers get halved.
Oh god, guys,
Is that
I'm
an
super
issue in
tired.
EU? Does EU struggle to find good tanks for high keys? Is there like not a lot of tanks to do high keys or something?
I'm probably not the best to ask. To be honest, like I only play with now and stuff, and whenever I'm doing my weeklies, I pop up in the finder. Like all my viewers, they're all gamers, so like everyone's like 3.2k score, and I can just choose.
Let's fucking go.
I
That
don't
sounds
have
about
those
right.
problems, to be honest.
Yeah.
Wait,
God.
so with Mao stopping in the raid and then getting Andy Brew to come tank, that's like the first like real name tank you guys have recruited, I think, when Now has done his normal I don't want to raid farm, so I'm gonna quit until the next tier comes out and then still play anyway bit. Is this time actually different? Or do you
Okay.
think he's doing the exact same thing again?
I mean now he can't, at least not this tier. And now he made his decision, right? Now Andy is getting a shot, and he fits in really nicely. I think we got it was a good pickup. And he seems to enjoy himself, and he's also uh, a player that's like really motivated. You can see it. Except for there's one negative thing about Andy, and that's like whatever that AI thing he has going on his stream, like that just needs to stop immediately.
Wait,
But
what is
besides,
I heard that started from.
but besides
Echo,
that, it's a good start, I
Wait,
think.
what AI thing?
He's a VTuber now. I like it. It's pretty big.
I like it. It's pasted.
Hey man, according to him, he was saying that it was from him being part of Echo now. You know, Echo's got
Yeah.
a lot of weeps, and
We do. We have a lot of weeps in the guild.
yeah.
I'm one of them.
Nerds convinced them. You're one of them. That's good.
I'm a closet weep. Oh, but he's
I
doing.
definitely
He's
feel
doing.
like there are a lot more European weeps. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gay. He's doing great. Like so far. So I don't think Robin could just come in and say, "Hey, I'm gonna play this tier," but he just. Who knows what will happen in the future? But like for now, I think he just wants to focus on M plus. Like that's always Robin likes progression, but he doesn't think like the cons of him doing all of the prep, preparing like all of these tanks and doing all of these farm raids every week is worth it for him.
He just wants to enjoy the game.
Yeah, exactly. It makes him enjoy the game less, and then he loses motivation. And he's a very emotional player, and a lot of times very impulsive as well as a person, based on his sometimes feelings in a moment, and then thinking back on it, he changes his mind. It's happened a lot. I mean, I played with a guy for many years, and it happened with New World as well. Saying I'm not gonna play this MDI, comes crawling back like a month later.
Dude,
It's how he is.
From Old Year to from Old Year to Castle Nathria, how long is that? Is that 2 years? That is 2 years, one full expansion. Robin did not raid in the same guild for 2 tiers in a row. It actually even goes before that. Like literally, he raided in your guild in Old Year. He raided in our guild in BOD. He raided in like a casual guild in Eternal Palace, and then he raided in our guild in Nyalotha, and then in Castle Nathra he raided with you all, and then he's been with you all ever since. And then before Old Year, he even did that before. He's like a big mind changer. He just is a free spirit.
Yeah, he's the definition of do what makes you happy. I'm different. I feel like I have a sense of responsibility in a lot of things, and I will push through the bad shit a lot of times because I know the good shit is on the other side, and that's what I feel about like a lot of these grinds. Like I don't want to farm fucking rank and hide rares on 11 characters. Like, who the fuck wants to do that? But
yeah, let's talk about that. By the way, we've kind of like joked about it like years ago about how, you know, like, man, this is kind of getting out of control. Like how just more and more preparation. Like, remember back with like artifact power or Azerite power in BFA? It's like, oh, get this much Azerite power before the raid comes out on this many characters, or get 60 before Eternal Palace or Niloth or whatever. And then like that was like the grind, and now it's like, just think about back then. We thought we had it bad. It's literally fucking like 10 times worse now. the amount of shit that is required.
Well, would you attribute that to, you know, the guild's mindsets or players' mindsets, or is that more of like the game does that to you?
I think the
Because it definitely feels
mindset
like people are just much more tryhard now.
Well, I think the mindset has definitely become increasingly more and more try hard. Like they would see us do something and then they would do it, and then we would see them do something. We're like, okay, we have to do it. Like we can't just go into the raid when they have 3 more characters than us. You know, like
Yeah,
you just
because I was
have
about
to
to
do
say,
that.
like, I sort of
It's
remember
definitely the game too.
when
But
Evade was in. I remember Evade was like, oh, you know, we have this thing where, like, you know, we will never have to make, what do you want to call it, buckets or
yep.
clones or yeah, like all that. Like that wasn't a thing, right? During BFA or late.
You well, okay. Evade was a different case. So Evade never wanted to make buckets, and even then we were like, that's fine. You can just play one demon hunter. That guy's definitely like as good as anyone who plays WoW. Evade is, if you guys are watching, like that guy is fucking crazy good. He's as good as anyone who plays the game. Certainly as good as DH as anyone is as good at their class. And that guy did not. We were like, yo, dude, if you don't want to make buckets, we'll fucking just have you on one demon hunter and just send it with whatever you got. But he didn't. He also didn't want to be the one guy in the guild that like didn't have to do all this work, right? Because that's like kind of a weird dynamic. We're like,
kind of
you're
kind of interesting. We don't make exceptions like that, and
Oh, I would make an
everyone.
exception for that guy.
Okay,
He's
okay.
he's fucking he's a turbo gigantor
Evade
brain
was
too.
insane. Yeah.
He's definitely like fired up good on mage. I just I don't I it's you very rarely find people. I mean, dude, would you? So your guild, if Zalia would play whatever healer you wanted, and even he would have one of each healer, but he did not want to make buckets for whichever one he was most likely to play. You wouldn't be like, yeah, that's fine, you're chilling. If you had to, if it was between that and not having him, I feel like it'd be worth it.
I guess it's different because Daly is a nerd and he'll do it. He will hate himself for not doing everything he could to win, to be honest.
Yeah, but
No,
what if
it's
he didn't?
I guess we could make like potential exceptions if we had like a really valuable you know, player in the team. Not necessarily only gameplay related, but like maybe they have something to do because they're an officer, or maybe they have something going on in their real life and they just have to cut down. Then you could make exceptions for a tier or whatnot. But everyone in the guild is like super tryhard, and everyone is actually putting in the work, which is, I think,
I mean,
part of
yeah,
why we have the
that,
success we have. You know, I don't think anyone's a slacker.
yeah, I think in general over time, this is less of the case now. We actually have the same thing, just like a bunch of people playing a bunch of different characters and playing all the time, even when they're not asked to. Uh, but that did not used to be the case. I think like especially through all of BFA, we had like way relaxed requirements. We didn't really require them to play a certain amount of characters. We didn't, you know, if they needed to take a couple weeks off, like that was fine. Like definitely more focused on like player happiness and farm. And just as time went on, it was not really feasible to do that because of how hard you guys were going. So now we're just fucking now we're just stuck doing this shit.
We actually,
But people
Sao
don't
said it
mind
in the chat as well. Like we kind of have a saying in the guild that like everybody is replaceable, and because we have this mindset, no one thinks highly of ourselves, and everyone puts in the work, no matter what position you have in the guild. And actually, this is a bad and a good thing. When it comes progress time, we're actually kind of like having an internal competition within each other of like who goes most degenerate, and sometimes that's good, like spark some healthy competition. Um, and I think that's like how everyone in the guild is. Uh, we have a little bit of a different mentality there.
Yep, I think more than anything else, it's also a culture diff. I think a lot of things between our guilds is very simply what an English-speaking European guild is most likely going to be like, with all of like, you know, you got fucking Germans, you got Italians, you got Scandinavian, ton of Scandinavian WoW players. And when you have to find some common ground, it's in general, I think, a bit more strict and a bit more like try hard in general. And I think that's true in like all of gaming, but I certainly think it affects like the like guilds in general.
Yeah, 100%. Guys, this was a wonderful talk. Max, you opened up a lot. This was like a therapy session almost. I hope you got a lot of you aired it out a little bit. But yeah, I'm gonna head off to bed.
I just say exactly how it is. That's I say
Oh,
that on my stream too. But yeah, yeah, it's all right.
yeah, thank you so much for a wonderful company. I'll see you guys. I'll be here tomorrow as well for some good games, some MDI watch party. Hopefully get some cheese. I was really sad that we didn't get to see them play today, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's gonna be kind of sleeper. I was just looking at it. It's like first match, Monk is gonna absolutely destroy that team. Second match, Cheese versus Thunderstruck owns, and then the next 4 matches are all bad. I don't think there's even like one close game. I'm pretty sure.
Day 2 is usually the long lower bracket day.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Good night, guys. Have a great stream.
Good night, man.
All right. There we go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. All been great as always. Back tomorrow, another watch party. Went a little bit longer than I expected, but yeah, we had a good long talk. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I think it was fun. Honestly, me and Max, we haven't talked in like ages, bro. Like it was since, what was it, BlizzCon, the fucking rooftop party, and then everything with the poker happened and stuff like that. And like you said today as well, he got super butthurt about that. So probably been tilted at me since then. So it was good to air that out a little bit. Hope you enjoyed the stream.